Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another evening, another round of entertaining and enthralling racing action in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right folks, we are back once again for another round of racing action, and in round 7 of 10, where exactly have we made our way to today? Well, we have made our way back to Japan, the host of course to other early rounds of the season at the Fuji International Speedway. But of course, if we visited what may be considered the opener to international racing in Japan, well, we have made our way today to the circuit that followed after it and is indeed the mainstay of international racing in the country as of today. Here's of course none other than the Suzuka International Racing Course, a 3.6 mile iconic circuit known best of course as being the only FIA Grade 1 figure of 8 style circuit, albeit drivers don't quite cross over each other, but they'll drive over the top of each other with its wonderful bridge towards 130R cutting over the exit of Degner 2, and this is a circuit that designed by John Hugenholtz all the way back in the 1970s. It has been a circuit that's like no other when it comes to the challenge it presents. Originally designed for the purposes of Honda Motor Company to use as a tested circuit and their proving ground for their Type R machinery, whether it be the Gen 1 NSX or the Honda Civic Type R FL5, this is one of those circuits that has a little bit of everything. Sweepers, hairpins, long straights, you've got it. High speed left-handers as well, you've definitely got that as well. And on top of that, elevation changes woven into the mix. So what exactly does this circuit not offer? Well, one of the biggest changes around here will be overtaking opportunities, because following another drive around Suzuka is a battle against the dirty air as much as it is a battle on pace. And for our drivers today, they'll need to get it absolutely right in qualifying, because otherwise this will be an absolute struggle to try and move forward. But they'll definitely try to do so. They will be on circuit or in the pit lane through strategy. And with rain on the cards as well, as you may be able to see in the background, that's only going to add an even bigger change to mix, and we look forward to seeing who exactly is going to come out on top and who is not. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Zolder as you tune in tonight to find the one and only place you can catch all the racing action on a weekly basis from our Thursday GT3 Championship and any SimRacing International series. As of course on YouTube, go to youtube.com and search for SimRacing International SRI and you can be tuning in there. And of course you're tuning into today the Superstar split in this broadcast. We have two splits going on in parallel, and shortly getting underway will be the broadcast as well for the Masters. If it has not already done so, and you'll be in the very capable hands of Chaz Draycott and Darragh Thacker. But meanwhile, if you decide to stay with the Superstars, well, you're with myself. My name is Paul Walsh, the Uninitiated, and I will bring you all your racing action live from Circuit Side as it unfolds. And as we make our way into round number 7, well, let's bring you up to speed with the story so far and what exactly were the headlines from round number 6. For as we can see, we return today to Japan, and it is time for the 14th of May, and we're at round number 7, the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit. This is a round where we slightly diverge from what the racing beholds us in the Masters class, whereby we do have what is two 30-minute sprint races in the Masters, but here in Superstars, you're welcome to a single 60-minute race. Therefore, as always, we continue the theme of feature race length and racing action, and that carries on from last time out at Circuit Zolder on the 7th of May. But when it exactly went down, when we returned to Belgium for everybody's second favourite Belgian circuit, well, we got to see quite the race, there's no doubt about it. And perhaps the biggest part of the entertainment, of course, was in qualifying just as much in the race, whereby we got to see 39 drivers take on Circuit Zolder, and qualifying was incredibly tight, although there was an exceptional pole position overall for Leon Seeley, and in the Pro class, taking pole position by almost 2 tenths ahead of the Interpol sitter of Luc van Gortel, and then we did see second all the way through to 26th overall, separated by only 9 tenths of a second. But we had to expect that. Circuit Zolder really was Brands Hatch continued, albeit amplified with plenty more chicanes. And when we did go into the race, well, there was plenty of battling action from the start all the way to the very end, but also there were huge giant slayings. Now, it was not necessarily giant slayings by drivers making major moves on the biggest names on the grid, but in some instances, Circuit Zolder slaying some of the biggest drivers in the racing order, and surprise instance as well. And one of the biggest ones, of course, was the runaway leader of Leon Seeley overall in Pro, whereby a late instant in the end saw his opportunity to take his first win of the season completely curtailed, and that opened up the doorway for Richard Simnor to take a maiden win of the season in the Pro class. He couldn't quite believe it, nobody could quite believe it, but a Corvette did win in the end, but it was Richard Simnor, the man who was aspiring to be as quick as Leon Seeley. We got his opportunity to take a win before Leon Seeley was able to do so. But that's the way it went for Richard Simnor after starting very well on the second row of the grid and make his way forward to that victory. Well, what exactly happened elsewhere? When the interclass as well, it was a runaway lead for Luc van Gortel, and in the end we got to see the Dutchman involved in an unfortunate instance towards the end of the race, and what it did do was open up the doorway for Bobby Moss to take his surprise first win of of the season. He was second in class in qualifying. He was the best part of 1.5 tenths off the pole time set Van Gortel, but in the end, over the course of the race distance, he prioritised his interclass position and letting all the pro drivers who were behind him go through. And in the end, well, his consistency and his calmness was rewarded with that surprise victory. Albeit keep in mind, of course, there was the absence of Jared Love, the championship leader, and more on that very shortly. Meanwhile, in the club class, there were no surprises in club, it could be said, whereby Adam Lynch took pole position by almost 2 tenths ahead of Jack Giles. Those two, of course, first and second in the championship going into that round, and coming out of the round, they're first and second in the championship because Adam Lynch in the end took the victory, remained untouched over the entire distance, and he made up for his mistake at Brands Hatch, which cost him the chance of the win, and he definitely landed the win in this time out, taking that victory by 21.5 seconds. So those are the big headlines from Suzuka in the Superstars, and as we make our way into this round, I'm sure we're going to be seeing plenty more headlines come abound, and next time, of course, in round number 8 on the 21st of May, we'll be in France for the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours, where the sun will be shining bright. But here today, we've definitely got very little sunshine and plenty of rain. But of course, we've spoken about our headlines for round number 7. Who exactly is leading the way in which class? Well, let's bring you up to speed with the championship standings. And as we can see, first, he started with the pro class. Well, a surprise win puts Richard Simnor into a surprise lead in the championship by 6 points over Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. The DCW Racing at Blue Dry has proven to be definitely consistent over the course of this season, and that consistency has rewarded him very well. But remember, of course, the fact that he had a non-finish in the opening round, and therefore that is his drop score. He cannot afford to make too many mistakes from this point onwards, as otherwise he will be at risk of losing out very quickly. Now, we were without Milton Tomlinson-Dennis last time out, did decide to miss the round at Circuit Zolder to look after family, and well, I do believe we've got Milton Tomlinson-Dennis potentially coming back today, although we're just double checking that, and yes, he is back here today in Japan, and the Samantha Tan Racing driver looking to pick up the pace. Indeed, with 3 wins so far, he's definitely proven to be one of the quickest drivers out there, but his recent form seems to have spelled what was a bit of a challenge for him, and therefore he's got to try and get on the rebound as quickly as he can. Brandon Dyer sits in third on 346 points, the best part of 38 off of the top 2, but right now holding on to third place, but the best part of 20 points ahead of Raz Harper. And for Brandon Dyer, it was a middle-of-the-pack race last time out in the pro class, as it was for Raz Harper, getting the upper hand in the battle of the 2 Ford Mustang drivers. From the DDK Racing Team with RaceStatBox.com driver of Raz Harper, we now have Leon Seeley 18 points behind, and well, he'll know, like everybody, that 8th place wasn't where he wanted to be last time out. It should have been the win if it were not for that late instant, but the Samantha Tan Racing driver missed out on the chance to make it a triplet of podiums, and with his first win of the season, and therefore he's got it all to do again today. Niels Balkarga sits 10 points behind, a non-finish for him, a very unfortunate day in the office at Circuit Zolder, and therefore he's got to try and pick up the pieces very quickly, because now that's his second non-finish of the season, and therefore it's a 0 score, which is applied to his standings. He cannot drop it. Behind the German, it's then Ben Woodgate, only 4 points away, and with Circuit Zolder did not bode well for the Inter Racing Team driver, in the end wailing on the track side, and we did see Joris Peters-Veen, meanwhile, take a surprise podium, indeed his first podium of the season, but he fought hard for it and dug in and made it work in the BMW M4 Evo, and he really was one of the drivers who went all in right at the start of the race and had his elbows out for the entirety of it. It was Brands Hatch on steroids for him. Daniel Page, or Daniel Newman Racing, sits in 9th after a 4th place finish, his best result of the season last time out on 222 points, so he's staying with Peters-Veen, but he's only got an advantage of 16 points to Charlie Walker, who completes the top 10 for Relentless Racing, but falls to the back end of the top 10 after a non-finish last time out. Corey Price, well, it was a surprise second place for him. He'll be very happy with that, however, the Darkwing Racing driver, who was absolutely electrifying, it had to be said, at Circuit Zolder, really picking up the pace, and well done to him for his second podium for this season. But it's crazy to think with the non-finishes and the poor results in between those podiums, it really has been a season whereby it has been some highs and also some major lows. And Elliot Court could be said the same. They're sitting in 12th place around 198 points and missed the previous round. But then we come to the interclass, and here we can see in the second tier of our classes, we may have missed the previous round, but it hasn't done much to dent his championship lead. Jared Love committing what will be Circuit Zolder to his drop score, and with 3 wins so far and a third, well, the man is definitely looking to be on top of things, it would seem. Bobby Moss, meanwhile, he's definitely building a run of momentum now into second place on 406 points, and we can see the top 2 in the interclass are starting to bolt away from the rest of the field, and the gap from the TSRC driver to Sam Hockley, the privateer, is the best part now of none other and 58 points. And for Sam Hockley, the challenge is going to be to see whether he can shoehorn his way into that top 2, and he's got to keep up the run of podiums to do so. Brad Pickett for the Clarkson James with Dexterous Motorsports drive sits in 4th, and right now slipping away a little bit from Sam Hockley, and we are starting to see Sam Hockley emerge into a no man's land, and there is the fight for 4th place. Or is it in reality? Because Villa Katonen, the Beowulf Racing team, with a serious injury, will not be returning to the racing for the remainder of the season. We didn't see him last time out at Circuit Zolder, and the Beowulf Racing team have packed up their gear for this season. We hope to see him back in the near future. Prefecture, and therefore it does mean that right now the effective battle for fourth is between Brad Pickett and Adam Smith, with Smith currently 42 points behind for what is Enduro Titans Racing. He sits there in 6th place on 264 points, only 6 ahead of Ross Young, the second member of the Clark St James Dexterous Motorsports team, and he came flying through the field late on to take 4th place at Zolder, and Mie Nicholas Castle falls to 8th place with his retirement from this season. Behind the smiling Swede, it's Dan Carl Roy, the Scotsman for Axis Sport with SimWorks, and we didn't see him on the grid for the last couple of rounds, and hopefully we'll get to see him back today, and indeed we will see him back in his Aston Martin today. He's got some time to make up for. Mark Collicott, a 3rd place last about, a double podium across 2 classes for DCW Racing Blue, and that's had a big impact in their team's championship score, where he completes the top 10, and he is only the best part. They have 8 points ahead at Luke van Gortel, and the DNF for him last time out. Well, an absolute heartbreak it was for the MJK Sim Racing driver. Nobody could have predicted it. Unfortunately for the Dutchman, a 2nd win of the season has gone in the bin. But hopefully, we'll get to see him go chasing after another one sometime soon, if not today at Suzuka. And Mikhail Abasek completes the standings there in terms of the top 12 of the interclass on 176 points. Then to the club class we go. And here we can see in the club class, it's Adam Lynch with his runner podiums still uninterrupted. Of course, keep in mind the fact that he did miss round number 4. But with that being missed, it becomes a drop score. So that's why his run continues, because we only count the best 6 results at this time. In fact, the best 5 results this time when I get it right. We're on round number 7 today, not round number 8. But Adam Lynch right now, either way, when I can do maths and when I can't, he's ahead of Jack Giles. And the gap between the two of them, 36 points. Giles keeping up a run of 2nd place finishes, and that's what you got to do if you can't beat the championship leader. You've got to finish 2nd best behind him, and Giles doing exactly that, but he needs to find a way, and he needs to find an edge to bring that gap down soon. But both of them, much like the battle for the lead in the interclass, both of them are pulling away from the rest of the club class, and Ashley Shucksmith leads the way in 3rd on 344 points. He is now 90 points away from the top 2, but he is only 14 points ahead of Christopher Petty. And for Petty, he needs to try and return to the top 5 soon, because the priority right now has definitely got the pace to be in 3rd place, but it's not looking as though the consistent results are coming his way. Eddie Fearbold, another podium for him, a win at Brands Hatch Course, a surprise win, and a 3rd place that wasn't a surprise last time out. And the English driver right now doing a very good job on 324 points, and he's ahead of Jordan Butler for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, who is 52 behind. Now for Jordan Butler, of course, there's been some great form out there, but it all went slightly wrong at Brands Hatch, and at Circuit Zolder it went wrong again, but can he finally get things right today? They don't necessarily say that 2 wrongs make a right, but you'd be hoping that does apply here at Suzuka. James Fraser, it was a miserable day in the office for him at Circuit Zolder. He only picked up 12th place, so he's on 250 points, and he's 12 ahead of his teammate Rob Gregg for Moonshiners Racing Club. Arno Pratt, unfortunately, won't be on the grid today due to personal circumstances. We do wish him well. He got in touch with me just before today's racing to let me know, and well, last time out for him, it was another top 10 finish, and his pace is looking consistent, and he's trying to take a step forward for MJK Sim Racing, so hopefully we'll see him back in France. And we do see Steve Hughes, the best part of 2 points behind him for Team UK Sim Racing with Freewheeler Racing. And well, last time out, it was a 4th place finish. He was close to the podium, chasing after Eddie Fearbold, but couldn't quite get close enough to him to make it his 2nd podium of the season. But definitely, when he's on a run, he's on a good one. He completes the top 10, 10 points ahead of Dwayne Hoffman, and behind the FTVM driver, it's then Philip Harris, only 2 points behind. And we can see that's how your top 12 stands in the club class. But as for the team's championship standings, well, there's one team right now who are running away at the very top, and that is the Glass Tip Racing team. Their run so far, they had a triple podium in the Pro Class of Masters at Brands Hatch, and they did it again at Circuit Zolder, and what as a result means it's now a huge set of scores that are making them favourites, and if they do it again today, they definitely will be the favourites to take the team's title, potentially with a round to spare. But meanwhile, sitting in 2nd place, and what is none other than Euro Titans Endurance, they've gone from 4th to 2nd, they're building a lot of momentum with some impressive results from both Smith and Giles at Zolder, and therefore they'll be hoping today they can keep that up, and make sure that DDK Racing Team with RaceThatBot.com don't get close enough. But remember, Jared Love is back on the grid today, so therefore we're expecting the trio will look quite tough around here, and they'll be able to potentially make the way into 2nd place, or at least put up a gap between themselves and Axis and Sports with SimCoach, who have gone from 3rd to 4th and are slipping slightly back. Only the best part of 16 points behind is Dexterous Motorsports Cyan, completing the top 5, but on their 762 points, they now do have a bit of a comfort gap as they move from 6th to 5th to the team that has moved into 6th place from 5th, and that is Samantha Tan Racing. It was a round of what could have been for Leon Seeley in the absence of Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, where it was never to be, unfortunately, but they're both back today, looking to give it their all once again. They're only 6 points ahead of LS Racing, and in turn, Barbecue Bread Racing, they're doing a phenomenal job of the South African outfit, whereby with their lovely livery machines, they've moved from 10th to 8th, and they're taking major steps in the right direction, and are hitting their stride in the 2nd half of the season in the Masters class. Meanwhile, we do see none other than what is Axis Sim Sports with SimWorks sitting in 9th place, and well, their story last time out was remaining in 9th. It was a good round, but the fight to stay in the top 10 is intensifying, because close behind them are Vulcan Motorsports there. In fact, they are equal 24 points, but they're behind based on result countback. And outside the top 10 11th place, it's Dexterous Motorsports Thunder, who have reached their highest position in the team standing so far. They're only 22 points off of the top 10, but they do have their sister team of Clark St James with DXT, and also DCW Racing Blue and Darkwind Racing, all within 20 points behind. So the battle to be inside the top 10 is still raging on with a fiery endeavour. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's endeavour to make our way, take a look a little bit about our circuit for today. It is, of course, the Grand Prix layout of the Suzuka circuit, or known for Suzuka International Racing Course. But regardless of the name, the circuit remains located in the city limits of Suzuka City, and that is within the Mie Prefecture of Japan. 3.6 miles in length, or 5.8 kilometres, but regardless of the units you use, the number of corners stays the same as well, 17 of them, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track that's contained within it. And of course, this is no stranger of a circuit to anyone. If you have never heard of Suzuka, well, I'm not quite sure what you've been doing for the last part of however long you've been on the earth, but to be fair, that is a little bit disrespectful. We should always be welcoming it. If you're new to motorsport and you're new to sim racing and you've not seen Suzuka, what do you need to know about this circuit? Well, this circuit being cut up into 4 quarters. It is a testing circuit used by Honda as their primary testing circuit, although they do have several in Japan, also including the mobility resort Motegi. But this one takes priority, and as our drivers roar the way down towards turn 1, they head into the opening double right-hander, which is the sweeping turn 1 that closes up with a late apex turn 2, and after that they make the way into the sweeping S's section of turns 3, 4, 5, 6. It's all uphill with descending apex speed, and then they plummet their way down through turn 6 and uphill through turn 7. That completes the S's and the first quarter lap in the first sector. Then they'll make the way for the fast charging left-hander before getting to the Degners of turns 8 and 9, which is all about car responsiveness over curbs and medium speed cornering, giving way to low speed cornering as they break the way through Degners 1 and 2 and then make the way underneath the bridge. That's going to be Sector 2 completed very quickly, and then they do make the way into the third quarter lap, which is the hairpin, the Kobayashi hairpin at turn 11, from the Kinka 10 in towards 11, named after Kamui Kobayashi, the Formula 1 driver, a home hero, and it was renamed after, I do believe, the 2011 Japanese Grand Prix, where he made the most overtakes ever seen at that one corner in the history of a Formula 1 race there. I do believe in a single day he made 7 overtakes, and that's why it got the name. And it's stuck, it definitely has. They'll make the way out that low speed corner, they'll stick the throttle down, and make the way through the long right-hander of turn 12, before making the way in towards Spoon Curve. The double apex left-hander at turn 13 and 13B, where it's all about going over a blind apex at turn 13B and getting the power to make your way into the final sector, which is the roar down at the straight all the way up towards what we 130R, the infamous fast left-hander that has been slowed over the years for safety reasons, but it's still very quick as the drivers come through turn 14 over the bridge, then they make the way into the Casio Triangle chicane at turns 15, 16 and 17 to complete lap and do it all over again. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side and see how our drivers are getting on in the final 15 minutes of the qualifying session. And as we do come back to the circuit, it does look as though the rain is still continuing to fall here at Suzuka. The rain arrived literally as qualifying got underway. So therefore, I think we're seeing another situation whereby the time to get the laps in was right at the start, and now this is really a wet weather practice session. But lo and behold, some drivers have not got their laps in immediately, and therefore we are going to see a bit of a shake-up of this qualifying order. But right now we see Schubert Cardozo making his way on around in his BMW M4 Evo, and the InterRacing team driver looking decent in 5th place overall. But keep in mind, the wet pace at the moment is looking at what is 2-minute 18s and 2-minute 17s the fastest drivers. Well, his lap time that he set was on a slick tyre as the rain was falling, and he has been able to achieve a 2-minute 2.42. So we're not going to get anywhere near that. In terms of the weather forecast we are expecting here today, and we are just double checking in with the forecast there, because we've got this wonderful weather technology that is available. What we can tell you here for the Superstar split at least, it is going to be slightly different in the Master split as well. We've had rain literally arrive at the start of qualifying. We are expecting it to stop right towards the end of qualifying. So any time now to the final 5 minutes, we should see the rain come to a stop. And then it will be dry in the warm-up period. And when we transition to the race, we will have the return of rain for at least the first 20 minutes of the race. And then it will go away. So something tells me the wet tyre is going to be the tyre to be on for the entirety of today, unless it's in the final 5 to 10 minutes of the race. But it will be very dependent on how quickly the circuit dries up. And to be fair, Suzuka is not a very grippy circuit in general, and grippy being the new word that we've invented in the dictionary today. This is one of those circuits whereby any rubber that's laid down is absolutely precious, and every time the rain comes along, it washes it all away. So this is definitely going to be a challenge for all of our drivers to try and get things right. Brandon Dyer makes one around right now for Altitude 3 Esports. And as he does so, well, in the wonderful McLaren 720 S Evo, he'll be feeling quite confident in his car, no doubt about it, as he weaves and winds his way between the corners. But going in towards Spoon, well, right now, definitely get his head down here, and we'll go a bit deep, but just about collecting the curb on the outside. But we have to be careful doing that too often, because of course water will gather on those curbs. Now, we do say hello to some of you in the YouTube chat, including Paul Thompson there, who says, tops off weather, let's go. And indeed, very wet weather out there, and I hope you're doing well, Paul. All the drivers carrying on here at the moment and doing very impressively in these wet conditions. But of course, this now is no sign of a driver trying to improve in qualifying. And some of the biggest surprises at the moment is firstly Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. He's all the way down in 24th place. And what I do believe, remarking with the team down in the pit lane about the fact they only got one lap in the dry, and in the end they didn't get anything more than that. So for Samantha Tan Racing, with Tomlinson-Dennis in 24th, Leon Seeley in 27th, this has not worked out at all for the STR team, and this is not looking good, particularly when you do consider the fact that Richard Simnor, the Pro Championship leader, he currently sits in 9th place. That's 6th in Pro, and well, for him, even though it's not on the front row, he'll still be happy with this, and Simnor normally does go quite well in changeable conditions. Again, he's not the quickest of drivers out there, but he's a very smart and smooth driver. You could say, in a way, he's a bit of a Jenson Button of this grid, but we'll have to wait and see, where he's also got the mastery of the weather like Jenson Button has over the course of many a year in Formula 1 and also other racing series, including none other than the World Endurance Championship. But Simnor makes his way on through. Well, we're going to need to get you an on-board lap one of our drives very shortly. Do we do it with Simnor? And the answer is going to be yes, we do, as we make our way around on board with the DCW Racing Blue Corvette Z06 GT3 RC8, and he heads down towards turn number 1. Now, as he makes his way on down here with 10 minutes to go, onto the brakes, he'll get ready to go in towards the opening right-hander. Coming through here, they'll come through a lot quicker in the dry, but in the wet, he has to avoid the inside, to avoid the puddle that's building, and stays nice and wide there to avoid all the water that's congregating on the apex of turn number 2. Battling with the car every step away as he now makes his way through the SS turn number 3, and again, just avoiding the curb slightly to avoid the water, and you can see where it slides down the hill as he takes a bit of the water there, the staying water on the inside of turn 4, in towards turn number 5, gets it together just about, and now over the crest into turn 6, and coming down, when you see that water now flying over the crest and down the hill, and as he now makes way across the water patch in towards turn number 7. Battling with the puddle as he enters, a bit of understeer creeps in, but just about keeps it together as he gets pinched there on the exit curb, but Richard Simnor keeps that in track limits just about. Now he makes his way into the first of 2 Degners, braking 75 metres from corner apex in the dry B50, and as he comes out in 3rd gear, now onto the brakes of Degner 2, going all the way down, keeps it outside to avoid all the water that's gathering on the inside, and under the bridge he goes. Now heading up towards Kobayashi hairpin, through the kink of 10, up towards 11, brings the car over to the inside here initially, but then brake straight on, so that way he does not end up in the puddle on the apex, so going across the flow of the water just in time on a straight line on the braking, you can do that without issue, and now making his way through the long right-hander at turn number 12. As he comes on through, he'll be getting ready for Spoon Curve at this point. It's been a smooth lap so far for Simnor. And, well, what will he do at this point into Spoon? We'll get ready to go onto the brakes. And as he does so, onto the anchors there, about 120 metres from corner apex, trailing off in 3rd gear. And now fighting with the car as he tries to get it to turn into the second part of Spoon. The car refusing to at first. Refuses to drop into 2nd gear there. He doesn't want to spin up the rear wheels too aggressively. This Corvette has got a lot of torque to it. And as he now powers his way down the sprint straight, and that being the eastern straight of the circuit, my memory serves me correctly, used for club level racing and motorcycle racing, he'll now make his way in towards 130R. Albeit going in the 5th gear, hits a bit of the puddle on the apex curve, the car slides sideways and he collects that. It's a good catch by Richard Simnor. He should definitely consider fielding in cricket as he comes onto the brakes there, 150 minutes from corner apex into the Casio Triangle chicane, down to 2nd gear, goes right, goes left, and now all the way out for the final corner, just feathering the throttle in as he makes his way on through. Understeer creeping in, they're trying to avoid the water but also gently negotiate the car, and that is a lap done by Richard Simnor in the Corvette C8R GT3, and that being done at none other than the Suzuka International Racing Course. But a tough lap, no doubt about it. And remember, that's in qualifying trim. In race trim, when you're battling with other drivers and dealing with the spray of other cars in front, it's going to be even more difficult. But as we do see him make his way around, we look to Adam Lynch, who's making a bit of a journey, the championship leader in the club class at the moment. And, well, he's not the fastest driver in club in this qualifying session. That accolade is going to the 2nd place man, Jack Giles, in the championship. He's currently 2 places ahead in 16th. car currently parked up in the pit lane. A lot of cars parked up in the pit lane, to be fair. Somebody having some slight connectivity issues in the rear of the picture. Not quite sure who that was, but they faded in out of existence there. And, well, it looks like a bit of a loose connection. But as Jack Giles parks up, well, Adam Lynch still carrying on, and James Fraser makes his way tentatively out the pit lane on dry tyres. Well, I think that's a bit of wishful thinking there from Fraser. I can only imagine that the team has sent him out there for Moonshiners Racing Club to get a gauge of what the dry tyres can do. Other than that, I think this is a bit risky, to be honest. I think he's going to park up immediately in the gravel trap at turn 2 and go back to the pit lane. So as he does so, well, we look to Mikhail Abasek. And, well, in these conditions, as we see a car parked in the middle of the road and turned around, I believe that is the car of Milton Tomlinson-Dennis that was parked there. I'm not 100% certain. It was a Lamborghini, and we do know that he's running it in the Pro class. And we'll have to wait and see if he can get himself back on the road. But the point being, let's not get too distracted, by the way, with Lamborghini, is that in these challenging conditions, some drivers can suddenly surprise everyone. And that's exactly what Mikhail Abasek is doing for Inox Motorsport. He's currently on course for second place in the Interclass in his qualifying session. If he does so, will be his best qualifying points of the season by a considerable margin. Martin Kenyon, the same. He's currently the third fastest in Inter. Neither one of them, of course, able to quite match Jared Love when it was a drier circuit, but still they put laps together when they need to. And Kenyon's very good in these rapid-fire qualifying sessions where it's normally his first lap, his banker lap, which is actually quite close to his fastest laps out there. He doesn't really have a banker pace. He has more of a 95% pace in his first qualifying laps, and then he just turns up the wick for the rest of them. Now, that is not to discredit him. That's a compliment to him. Of course, the only downside to that is the fact that because he has such a small margin typically between his fastest lap and his banker lap, it only means whatever lap he sets in banker time, many a driver will then look at it and think, okay, that's what Kenyon's target really is, or thereabouts. But the thing is, because he's got that lap done nice and early, he's put himself right up there on the full row of the provisional grid, at least at this time. So I'll have to wait and see what that's going to translate to when it's all done. But right now, I'll tell you one thing, Davey Daniels and the team at DDK Racing with RacingStatBot.com, they will be very happy to see that Elliot Court's on provisional pole currently. And he's currently parked up in his Ferrari 296 in the pit lane, and that will be provisional pole by a single tenth, if that, over Brandon Dyer for Altitude Frame Esports. And we've both got their laps in nice and early, but Dyer not as quick as Court, and therefore you could say he's been caught out a little bit by the pace of the DDK Racing team driver, and we look forward to seeing what Elliot Court can do when we do go green flag racing. Raz Harper almost making a DDK Racing front row, as we do see Brandon Dye going a bit too quick into Spoon, catches the car just in time, and as he does so, a bit of evasive action having to be taken there by the Lamborghini of an Inter Racing team driver, and that being the Lamborghini, I believe, that's not Corey Price making his way onwards, or is it? It is indeed Corey Price, in fact, as he makes his way down for the Inter Racing team. So Price, in the end, representing the racing team with a livery, but flying for what will be Darkwing Racing in the team's championship. And right now, carrying all that speed through 130R. And Price, in the end, just about avoiding the wayward car of Dyer. But it was very close there. But that can happen in these conditions. Now, we've got any other surprises out there in terms of drivers who perhaps haven't done as well or have done exceptionally well in qualifying? Well, compared to last time out, Van Gertel right now, who normally is quite a master in these conditions, well, he's definitely looking quite smooth in the wet, but he didn't get his lap to go when he needed to. And, well, as we do say hello to Mark Kent there, who says, well, looks wet enough for the waterproof kimono tonight then. And, well, I do love that, Mark. That's absolutely brilliant, and I hope you're doing well. And, indeed, I think we are getting the waterproof kimonos out. I think we are getting the umbrellas out here. Everything seems to be huckled down quite nicely here in the warm commentary booth. Although if any water does leak into the commentary booth, I shall definitely be the first to know about it. And whereas Van Gertel makes swing around, he will definitely be one to watch out for in the race. Although the fact he's only going to be starting 25th and 8th in the Interclass, he's definitely made this hard for himself. But to be fair, it's not about how you start the race, it's about how you end it. And I suspect with the way the circuit will evolve towards the end of the race, when the rain stops and it starts to dry up, it won't be about who switches the wet tyre, it'll be about who feels the most confident in attacking the circuit when there's a lot of puddles of water dotted around. That's going to be the hard part of the journey. But Dwayne Hoffman makes his journey on to what will be most likely his final flying lap. He may squeeze in an extra one. He is 3 seconds across the line from it. Well, here he goes then, on towards another one. Let's jump on board with him to see how he gets on. He's made his way down towards turn number 1 as he comes in towards the opening corner. And for those who like a little bit of trivia, turns 1 and 2 here known as turn 1. They're labelled as a single corner, but they actually are numbered as 2 separate corners. But coming out to turn number 2, now in towards the SC goes. And here the Lamborghini, of course, just a little bit loose on the rear end. But of course, all open setups here, trying to bring a setup they're choosing. Now coming in towards turn number 5 and just taking it nice and gently. That's what it's all about. ease the car through the corners, find where the wet patches are non-existent, and follow those instead. The racing line no longer exists as such, it's more of a guiding line. We're coming out to turn number 7 here, well, keeping it nice and easy, not letting the car pull too wide out. It's a bit odd, turn number 7, the fact once you touch the outside curb, it will pull you away from the circuit, because it slopes away from the circuit, not towards it. But in towards Degner 1 he goes, braking it down to second gear, and now coming in towards Degner 2, dropping back down to second gear after a short shift to third. And with those gear shifts there, whilst they will help him brake the car, they also do slow his pace down a little bit. While they are sequential gearboxes, every gear shift does cost time. Going through 10 in towards 11 here, all the way down to second gear, does not want to gamble going to first gear, goes a bit deep through the corner, gets it together just about, and as he makes his way through the long right-hander at turn number 12, and going onwards, well, I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen what is our time tell there have a bit of an error, so therefore we have had our overlay go, so water has seeped into the commentary booth. We do apologise for that, but we'll hopefully get our overlay back in due course. Seems to have hit a bit of a technical blunder, but that does happen every so often as the drivers make the way on around. But as he makes way through what is there, the left-hander of Spoon, now heading onwards towards none other than 130R. We're still looking relatively smooth, our driver so far, and it has been a good lap from Dwayne Hoffman. He's definitely getting himself out of trouble as he powers his way onwards towards 130R, throws the car into the corner as the rain does stop, and well, keeps it well within the track limits, making no mistakes. Now coming down towards Casio Triangle Chicane, onto the brakes he goes once again. As he does so, down to first gear, through the right, in towards left, and now getting the power down. And as he does so, that is going to be his qualifying session completed. And for Dwayne Hoffman, he'll come towards the timeline, and will he improve in terms of how he's been going so far in this qualifying session? The answer is going to be, he sets a personal best there. It is, well, in fact, he does not set a personal best, a little bit off in terms of his pace, and that's going to be a 2-minute 23.62. But still, for Hoffman, it is a respectable lap there, and definitely showing he's got a master of the challenging conditions that are prevalent at Suzuka. But he heads his way on around, and well, we do let him get ready to park up. A few drivers still on laps, including Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, although Tomlinson-Dennis makes his way into the pit lane, and as he does so, that's going to be his journey in qualifying complete. And well, I do believe he's going to get out the car. Actually, Shucksmith makes his way onwards as well, and we are just trying to get our overlay to come back, ladies and gents. It's decided to be a bit shy. I think some water has creeped in for one corner of the commentary booth and afraid some electronics, and we do apologise for that, but hopefully we'll get that back before we do go green flag racing. As we do see Ashley Shucksmith making his way down towards turn number 1, and as he does so, well, he improves the Shucksmith. He sets a 2-minute 16.80, and that puts him all the way up to 27th place overall and 6th place in club. So there's some improvement to be found out there. Luke van Goertel as well actually found a bit more time to go to a 2-minute 15.7. Did not improve his position from 25th overall and 8th in Inter, but finding the times. We're looking at Sam Hockley at the moment. Can he find a bit more time out there? Well, we will see very shortly, as before we get to him, we have got some cars coming through the last couple of corners, including Justin Noel. As he heads towards line, what's it going to be here for the American driver? He's on the other side of the Pacific in terms of where he's sat in his simulator right now, but the answer is here in Japan. He does not find any more time. Just behind there, Daniel Page does not find time on the wet tyre versus the dry, but he definitely gets another lap under his cap. Meanwhile, Sam Hockley heads towards the timing line. What's it going to be here for Hockley? Does he find a bit more time out this? Because the circuit is getting a little bit quicker. A 2-minute 18.09. The circuit's actually drying up quite quickly then if they're finding that much time so soon, as our overlay does come back. Welcome back, overlay. And as James Fraser makes his way down towards the timing line, what's he going to do this time round? And the 139, and it's going to be a 2-minute 21.05. So it does not improve, and that was on the wet tyres. He's not daring to go back onto the slicks. And well, I think Bradley Setters, meanwhile, has found a bit more time out there. Indeed, he has gone 35th. So Setters finding some time, 17th in Pro. And well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all the laps done and dusted. So in the end, it is going to be Elliot Court who takes the overall pole position, his first pole position of the season. And in Pro, for none other than DDK Racing with RaceStatBot.com. And it will be Brandon Dyer for Altitude Frame Esports, who joins him on the front row of the grid. And then Raz Harper, Court's teammate, starts in third, just ahead of Daniel Page. So it's going to be 4 very different names on those top 2 rows. Or with Brandon Dyer is no stranger to them, but the other 3 drivers are a little bit strange from them. Schubert Cardozo will start 5th, and he will be joined on that 3rd row by the Inter Championship leader, who's back today, and he has not seen a week give any rust busting away, and that is Jared Love. And what's a very impressive pole that from Love. In the end, 2 attempts quicker than Mikhail Abasek, who takes a season best qualifying points in 7th place overall. And Martin Kenya will join him on that 4th row, and that'll be your top 3 of the interclass. Meanwhile, Jack Giles will take pole position today in the club class at 16th overall, and we will see 2 places behind Adam Lynch and James Fraser. So in the end, the regulars towards the front, but watch out for James Fraser and Rob Gregg, the 2 Moonshiners Racing Club drivers, 19th and 20th, 3rd and 4th in the club class. They've done very well in qualifying. As we now transition and to our warm-up sessions, we do have now 5 minutes. I'll try and take a little bit of a breather and take a comfort break should they desire to take one. Well, that gives us plenty of opportunity as well to take a bit of a breather on our end in terms of taking some water on board. Now, I'm not going to go outside and get some rainwater in as much as it would be a bit comical to do so. We're not going to put the jug out there. Thankfully, I've got myself some plentiful spring water here in the Conte booth. And well, I'm going to heed my own advice and make sure that I take a good sip, because when we go racing for 60 minutes here today at the Suzuka International Racing Course, I suspect this is definitely going to be one of those races where you've got to blink and you'll miss it, because there's going to be so much action from the very start. And particularly with these challenging conditions, rain at Suzuka always causes pandemonium, and it's no exception in GT3 racing. But with water consumed there, and indeed if you're sat there right now at your TV, alternatively at your computer, or your tablet in hand, or your phone even, depending on your choice of media, we don't judge, well, if you're sat there thinking to yourself, you might need a quick bathroom break early on the race. Alternatively, you do want to make yourself a quick cup of tea, as that, I believe, was Thomas Weston rolling slightly backwards, but in the end, thankfully, not rolling into the path of another driver, the privateer, catching the car in the nick of time. Definitely go do it now. You don't have time to prepare yourself a three-course meal, so if you are looking to have some food, I recommend a snack, perhaps some potato chips, crisps, alternative mini cheddars, whatever you fancy, or even a digestive biscuit if you're feeling posh, because when we do go to the grid in 3 minutes' time, you won't want to miss a single moment of the racing action. But right now, as Thomas Weston makes his way on around, well, it's definitely a bit of a slippery moment coming out of turn 6 into 7. Of course, all these drivers right now really trying to push on a little bit. And given the fact that we don't have any rain at the moment in this warm-up session, and in terms of when that rain is expected to come back, it will be coming back just after the warm-up session, on the very end of it, going onto the grid and then lasting for around 20 to 25 minutes of the race. Well, that's definitely going to be a bit of a shock there, and it's the fault to the mind in the position whereby it's going to be a situation where all the drivers will definitely need to look after their wet tyres a little bit. And, well, Mark Kent saying he likes the shout of mini cheddars. And indeed, I had a packet of mini cheddars for the first time in about 3 years earlier this week. I can tell you one thing, I don't know what I've missed for so long. And, well, I tell you, it was a bit of a moment there whereby I thought to myself, I've gone back to my childhood, because I always used to have a packet of those in a packed lunch when I went to school. Indeed, that is completely off topic here. We are in Japan. We shouldn't be thinking about mini cheddars. We should be thinking about foods more relevant to the country itself, although not stereotype. And Steve Hughes makes his way onwards at the moment. And the food for thought for him will be just how high can he go in the club class? Can he potentially bring on home another podium, or at least a top 5? Because again, Steve Hughes and indeed the three-wheeler racing UK sim racing outfit, they normally go very well in changeable conditions, and we've seen that in the Sunday series as much as we've seen it in the Thursday series. We'll have to wait and see whether they can make some magic happen here today. And of course, some drivers out of position. Leon Seeley, one of the 2 members of the Samantha Tan Racing outfit, and they are definitely well down the order. They are not where they want to be based on the qualifying session, and therefore they have got a lot of work they will need to make happen, and they'll need to get it done very quickly in the race. They need to pick their way through. But to be fair, if we know Leon and also Milton very well, we do know they are very respectable, but also are very quick drivers, and they will not be afraid to get their elbows out in order to make those moves as quickly as they can. Andy Jones in the Acura NSX Evo 22 machine. Well, he's back today for DCW Racing Blue. Great to see him out there once again, and not great to see the car going on around, but he does give you a lovely 360 pirouette, and you can also see on the car there all the cats dotted around it. The cat livery DCW Racing Machine is back once again. I still need to ask him what the story is behind that livery, other than the team like cats. I do believe they're big cat fans, from what I gather from spending some time with the DCW Racing drivers. Although I've yet to meet a number of them in person. I almost had the opportunity to do so last year, but missed out, unfortunately, due to personal circumstances. But the Welshman make his way onwards right now, and definitely a brilliant livery there. And you could say he's feeling meowfificant today. Okay, even that one I've made myself shudder at a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. I was trying to make a parody on Magnificent, but it didn't quite work out there. And well, unfortunately for him, it could be a perfect day instead. And in fact, I'm going to stop now and stop thinking about the cats there, because otherwise I think this broadcast is going to so many to switch off very quickly. First he makes his way out around, 20 seconds left to go, and well, as Kyle Roy hits it around, well, the Access is what with SimWorks driver in his Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo. Well, today he's been decent in qualifying, but it's the race that matters most. Without further ado, ladies and gents, we make our way to the grid, because it is time for 60 minutes of racing here in round number 7 of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12, and you're tuning into the Superstar Split, brought to you today from the Suzuka International Racing Course on iRacing. And as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this will they'll line up for one and only race. On pole position, it will be Elliot Court for DDK with RaceStatBot.com, and he will be joined on the front row by Brandon Dyer. One very familiar with being on the front row, that's your second place man. Another not familiar with being on it, that's your leader. However, Elliot Court will know that behind him is his teammate of Raz Harper for DDK with RaceStatBot.com, and Daniel Page will complete that second row for Daniel Newman racing red. On row number 3, Schubert Cardozo for Inter Racing Team, and your Interpole sitter of Jared Love for DDK with RaceStatBot.com. The Scotsman doing very well in qualifying, and indeed a week's absence has not made him any slower. Mikhail Abasek really impressive in this qualifying session today for Inox Motorsport, getting the lap in nice and early. Starts second in Interclass. Can he convert it into a podium? We'll have to see. Martin Kenyon joins in on the 4th row and 8th place for Clark St James with DXT. Richard Simnor for DCW Racing Blue and Nils Balkage for NJP Performance. They were separated by 2 attempts in qualifying, but they line up together on row 5 and in 11th place. Bobby Moss there for the SimRacing Collective Esports head of Ashley Coupland for Relentless Racing. Thomas Weston starts 13th for a season best qualifying performance ahead of Bradley Pickett, and then we do see from Clark St James DXT's 218 driver Ben Woodgate, and with him on the 8th row of the grid Jack Giles for Eurotitus Endurance. Giles getting the upper hand in qualifying this time versus Adam Lynch, and between the two of them it will be Justin Noel who starts 17th, and the theme of the priorities continue because Adam Lynch is 18th, and then we do see James Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club joined by his teammate Rob Gregg. They round out your top 20. They'll be threatening in the race, but meanwhile, starting 21st place is going to be none other than Steve Hughes. Three-wheeler race for UK Sim Racing ahead of the machinery there of Walker. Charlie Walker for Relentless Racing had a difficult day in the office last time out, but hoping for an easier one today. Sam Hockley and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis line up on row 12 ahead of Luke Van Gertel and Andy Jones. On row number 14, it's Ashley Shucksmith and Leon Seeley. And then we do see completing your top 30, Kyle Roy and Jordan Butler. Outside the top 30, looking down, it was Chris Cole who struggled quite a bit in qualifying, and Corey Price the same, albeit between the two of them, Adam Smith there starting in at 32nd place. But then we do see behind the Eurotitus Insurance and Dartwind Racing drivers, it's going to be Ross Young starting 34th for Clark St James with DXT, and it's going to be Bradley Setters 35th on the grid ahead of Christopher Petty. And then on row number 19, it's Adrian Howard and none other than Max Dean, and then we do have completed the top 40 Benjamin Massey and Alfred Kirstein. And as the field makes its way into the Casio Triangle chicane, at 41st it's Dwayne Hoffman, behind him it's going to be the machinery of Philip Harris, and Eddie Theobald completes your starting order. And well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a good time. We've had to hop, skip and jump away through that grid because the field is almost at the starting line as the rain comes back down, and it's over to Elliot Court to take us away for 60 minutes of racing action. And it's lights out, away we go for round number 7 of the championship as Elliot Court gets a good start as they roar the way down towards turn 1. But Brandon Nye immediately look around the outside. We can see Raz Harper pinning himself to the inside to work with his teammate. But it's going to be an attempt to move here for Brandon Nye. Can he go all the way round as Mikhail Abasek's had a brilliant start. Up the inside there, Jared Love is going to be taking the into lead at this rate as they sliver and slide their way up towards turn number 3. Brandon Nye on the inside. It goes all in on the brakes, and we're caught on the outside. His teammate Raz Harper dives through, almost sent him a bit wide. Bit of contact there between Schubert Cardozo and Daniel Page, but Cardozo makes it through. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And meanwhile, we can see there the battle for the club lead. Jack Giles trying to fight his way away from Adam Lynch, trying to get on the inside of Justin Noel. But remember, it's going to be left into right, and Noel will get back ahead. Does it all coming down the hill right now, 2 by 2 as they roar and romp their way through turn 6 towards 7. Everyone's safely up through the opening couple of corners. Great to see. And as all these drives push on, well, plenty more to come, no doubt about it. But as we do hide, always the extra tyre wear on the screen. Will be while these drives come roaring on the round. And right now, quick down towards the breakings over Degner 1. Who's going to lose out. Who's going to gain? One to break it there. Bobby Boss makes sure that he doesn't get caught out by the combination of Thomas Weston and Brad Pickett, although Weston's going to try and go around the outside here. Weston looking absolutely rapid as he tries to go around the outside, up the inside towards the hairpin, but it's too late, too far back. He can't force that move on. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis free wide here. Surely not. They're not going to go 3-1. Leon Seeley in the middle of it, and in the end, James Fraser completely backs out, but he gets tapped on the move by Andy Jones, and as Fraser goes deep, Jones backs on as well. They all survive it, but they'll be 5 wide coming out of the hairpin for a brief moment. In the end, on the outside line, they all back off, and all these drivers right now absolutely on the limit here, but it's incredible driving from everyone, and the fact that we haven't had a major incident so far shows how talented all our drivers are in these conditions. Eddie Theobald right now trying to fight his way past Alfred Kirsten in a similar livery car, and as he does so, squeezes up the inside there through the turn number 12. Adrian Howard also making some progress there in this Porsche Daniel Newman Racing, but we see Theobald trying to go around the outside. He's going to try it, but he's going to run out of road. In fact, he's going to find more road on the outside. There's Benjamin Massey. I don't know what's wrong with Massey right now, but he's just not carrying any pace through that. I think it's nervousness with the tyres as they make the way onto the back stretch. All these drivers right now keeping it together. Meanwhile, in the foreground of the camera shot, that's Jordan Butler trying to look around the outside of Sam Hockley for position. And was he going to be able to get it done here? Yes, he will. As in fact, no, it won't be Hockley passes. That's actually Shucksmith behind. Apologies for the incorrection, but Jordan Butler loses it through 130R. It goes spin all around. Oh! And multiple cars come into the 2 Mercedes there. Theobald and also Benjamin Massey make contact. And suddenly Jordan Butler's spin is going to be the first casualty of this race. But on to lap number 2 we go. And Brandon Dye, after taking the lead off of Raz Harper through the opening S's section, doing a phenomenal start to this race. Brandon Dye already started to open a gap. Raz Harper, meanwhile, trying to follow right now. And the Ford Mustang drive, well, we know this Ford is very stable in wet conditions. Once it's got the right settings on it, it seems to go very well, even after the balance of performance hit midway through the season. And Harper right now looking to be very happy. Elliott Court's in third. The Ferrari driver had a bit of a slow start, got caught out on the outside through turn number 3, and that's really what upset his chance of the lead. Schubert Cardozo's behind him in 4th, Daniel Page 5th, Richard Simnor 6th, and then Jared Love, your inter-leader right now. He's got away from Mikhail Abbaset with Nils Balkarga going through behind him. Abbaset, meanwhile, in 2nd place in the interclass, in 9th with Martin Kenyon glued to the back of him. They stayed as they were, and meanwhile, Schubert Cardozo, the man, he's gone round at turn number 7, quickly gets the car off the road. You've got to be careful there on that inside. That's such a nightmare place to go round, but the good news is he will rejoin on the inside unless somebody gets it wrong coming out of the corner. He should be okay, and Cardozo will get himself back up to speed. We'll get a replay of that shortly, but he is able to move on, and he's going to recover, but he recovers all the way down in 29th place. The man who was battling inside the top 5 suddenly losing out. It's a spin, and well, he's gone from a win to a loss, but meanwhile, Jack Charles has gone wide, and that is the pole sitter in the club class. He's gone wide at Degner 1. I wonder if he's been elbowed out there. It's a mistake of his own volition, but either way, he finds himself down a bit of scrap with Eddie Theobald and Ross Young behind. And Theobald wants this place off of Giles as quickly as possible. But right now, the in-driver, Ross Young, says, I would have come through as well. Young's going to go out wide and high, and he'll be away for the water. As actually Shucksmith, meanwhile, makes literally an adventure out of Kobayashi Bend. And the privateer gets it together in the KFC machine, holding on to 6th place in the club class right now. But meanwhile, there's more change going on. As oh, hold on, that's Charlie Walker. And who's that with him? Is that? I'm trying to understand who that is. Whose Ferrari that is. Is that Brad Pickett? Yes, it is. And he can't St James and DXT driver, pieces of car all into the gravel trap there at the entry into Spoon. Something's gone very wrong, and I think the two men are coming together, but as a result, that's definitely going to upset the apple cars for both drivers. But Bradley Pickett was making progress, falls all the way down the order, and so understandably it does our pro driver. But meanwhile, more going on as me, but it's too wide here, coming in towards 130R. Sam Hockley on the inside of Ashley Shucksmith, and in the end, I think both drivers going, are we actually doing this? And both of them realising, no, we're not doing it. In terms of going too wide for 130R. In the dry, that requires trust between both drivers, as that's going to be a big slide of the brake in there, and that's going to be Eddie Theobald touching the grass on entry in towards Casio Triangle. Somehow, some way he got that back under control, and Bradley Setter's probably looking in front of himself right now and thinking, how on earth did he did that? Well, I can understand if Bradley's confused, we're confused too, but meanwhile, looking back to the front of the field as the rain continues to fall here in Japan. Well, Brandon Dye right now onto lap number 3, but the problem is the pressure is building. Raz Harper's coming back at him here early on, and right now, Raz Harper, I don't know what they've done with the car, as he completely cleans the camera off the back of the car, and as they make the way up towards turn number 7, right now, Raz Harper absolutely poking, probing, you name it, he's right on the back of Brandon Dyer. I think the altitude for him esports drivers, but you look at his rearview mirror and thinking, what exactly have they done to that Ford Mustang? Well, I think it's the setup they've put on Harper's car right now. They've probably gone all in a wet setup entirely, thinking the fact that it's not going to get dry enough to really make a difference later on in the race. So they want all the grip now, and they want to be able to go on full attack, take the lead of this race, then bolt away with it. There's We do see a little bit of sunlight breaking through the clouds. The rain is falling, but we have got plenty of sunlight expected in the final 20 minutes or so of this race. So there will be a dry line towards the end. It won't be good enough for a slick tyre, but it will definitely see these wet tyres suddenly heat up. We can see coming out to turn number 11 in towards 12 right now. Harper trying to go round the outside of Brandon Dyer. Not going to work that time, has to back out. Their Dyer right now being an inconvenience. And the idea is all he needs to do is make himself nice and wide, get the spray up and make sure that Harper can't see where he can go on the attack. It is a standard strategy. But meanwhile, it's Mikael Abasek, the man who was doing so well inside the top three of the interclass. He's got around. Where is that, I wonder? That's the exit turn number 11 as the camera zooms out. It's gone round for him. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis has been making loads of ground. And, well, as it's gone wrong for Abasek, falling down the order. Here's Tomlinson-Dennis. We've had more cows as Ashley Koopman's had a big moment. And he's in 17th, 18th. He's dropping all the way down. He's gone round a spoon curve. And we're going to have to get several replays of what's happened. Adrian Howard, meanwhile, has got a black flag. We're not sure what for. I believe it's instant points. Will 30 a jump start to the race. But either way, it's just Noel here. Finds himself down in 7th place in the pro class, where he's gained 3 places since the start. But he runs very wide at 130R and somehow, some way, keeps it on the black stuff. Well, when you go out wide at 130R in the wet, it is literally hold on to your hat. But meanwhile, Ben Woodgate here is trying to say to him, hold on to this instead. He's trying to take that place as much as he can, looking around the outside, fighting with the steering wheel every step of the way in the battle of the McLaren versus the Ferrari. But Woodgate gets the switch back to the inside. Lovely bit of car control there. He knew he had to risk it. And now Woodgate looking down towards turn 1. He's on the left of your picture. Meanwhile, it's going to be just now on the right of your picture. Into that brain zone they go. He's got to be careful. That pit exit line, that white line offers you no grip. It's slippery under the tarmac. And then Woodgate goes up the inside there, makes a smooth move. Now up into 7th place in the pro class. But as he continues to progress, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis and Corey Price behind, all queuing up looking for an opportunity to get involved more and more. Meanwhile, in the club class, Adam Lynch has taken the lead after the demise of Jack Giles. We still need a replay of that, but he has now got Philip Harris behind. So it's going to be another member here of the Eurotitans endurance team. One falls, another rises, and Harris looks up the inside, tries to go for it as we ride aboard the dashboard here. And right now, Harris is absolutely fired up, and Jack Giles is all the way down the very back of the order. In fact, the car's in the pit lane being repaired as a result of what's happened. So I suspect for Jack Giles, it's a race now that's definitely going to feel as though it's a story whereby it's all about the repair work. In fact, will we see Giles retire from the race as a result of the damage? We are waiting to find out. Hopefully not, that will have huge repercussions for the man who is second in the club championship at this point and trying to chase down Adam Leach. But understandably, Philip Harris now is probably being told over the radio by the team, Phil, you need to do what Jack has been unable to do. You need to beat that man in front to keep the club championship alive and also give yourself huge points. But as he comes into the braking zone here for Kobe, Ashley Lynch goes very deep. Harris keeps it together as well. And well, right now it's definitely looking to be a race where it's all about keeping it on the road as much as it is in terms of finding the fastest laps out there. As further back, Ashley Shucksmith with no front end on his Ferrari. That's completely disappeared somewhere. The front bumper, indeed all the under tray underneath it. And in fact, we've got 2 cars there, no front bumper. Ross Young as well. Well, he's definitely started a bit of a fashion trend as Ashley Shucksmith, and Ross Young has decided to go with the flow as they make their way up towards turn number 12. That's not going to help them at all. There's no front downforce of those cars. That'll make them very tricky to turn into the corners, albeit the rear wing on the back will keep them stable on corner exit, thankfully. But as things do seem to be starting to calm down a little bit, we had a brilliant opening lap and then it all erupted right towards the end of the opening lap after Jordan Butler's demise. Well, we need to get you a replay or two of what exactly happened at the start, ladies and gentlemen. And the good news is we can go back in time and tell you those stories as we begin our replay, but not without seeing Ross Young then make his way out the inside of Ashley Shucksmith down the back stretch and up towards 130R. But here we go for a trip back in time, or do we? No, not quite. It's Mikael Abasek. We'll have that gratuitous spin at turn number 11. Now looking for the move here for what will be 8th place in his class, but he can't quite get it at the moment. He's going to tuck back in behind Alfred Kirsten. And will he be able to make a move on the Dane this time? Outside to inside, he'll go for Cassio. And well, in the end, on the brakes. As there's a car into the barrier there, that's Bradley Setters. So as Mikael Abasek progresses, Bradley Setters regresses. And will that car be able to keep going? Well, we'll have to wait and see. It's been on Leon Seeley battling with James Fraser. Well, I've got to respect the fact that James Fraser, it doesn't matter if you're a pro or a club driver. With Fraser, if you go too wide with at some point, he will go to defend as hard as he can. He really is a fighter, is James Fraser. Well, Leon Seeley and Schubert Cardozo both making their way through there, but there's a tiny touch between Seeley and Fraser, and understanding tiny touches are magnified when it comes to these wet conditions, although no malice meant, and that will most likely be treated as a racing incident should it go to the stewards. James Fraser there will fall back down into 20th place overall, but hold on to 3rd in club, with Rob Gregg, his teammate, still 1.3 seconds behind, and try to keep Steve Hughes, Sam Hockley and Thomas Weston at bay, as there we do see Hughes right and the 5th place club runner. But without further ado, as we do see Thomas Weston looking for a potential move here, it was Degner 1 versus Sam Hockley. That's not going to come about there. He needs to be a bit closer to do that, and also the Degners are not really overtaking opportunities. We do take a look back at some of the big moments in the opening 4 laps of racing. So we take our trip back in time, and as we do, we looked how it all got underway, and what a race to get underway here today, as everyone did go at green flag racing, and Brandon Dyer in the end dropped the hammer alongside Braz Harper and Elliot Court. But Elliot Court was the pole sitter, of course, the thrower on the left, and Brandon Dyer here went all in for this move straight away as the whole field scored its way in towards turn number 2. And you can see that in the long distance camera as we come back to the closer camera, and Elliot Court there struggling for grip on the inside, hit the puddle of the inside of turn 2, the car snaking all over the place, and Brandon Dyer in the end capitalised on the situation. So did Court's teammate Harper, and that's how they managed to squeeze their way through. But so much fighting in amongst the pack. And meanwhile, Philip Harris, we started all the way from towards the very back of the field. He's come roaring through from 11th place in club, and well, here's how he did solve it. Look at all the grip he found on the outside line there, full of confidence, but unfortunately being boxed in a little bit by the DCW Racing Porsche for a moment. But still, that was the opening few corners. We had a big off track for Sam Hockley, and this was Hockley coming out to turn number 2 on the inside. So it went a bit wrong here for the Privative from the United Kingdom. When exactly went wrong, the answer was he found himself at a 3 wide, as that was contact between Leon Seeley and I believe a Lamborghini there from Inter Racing Team. And unfortunately, that was Sam Hockley being elbowed onto the grass and gravel, but was able to get himself back on the road quite quickly. We did have this happen to Adrian Howard later on lap 1. This was coming out of Kobayashi hairpin, the Daniel Newman Racing red driver. Well, 2 wide in front. He was right on the backside of the DCW Racing Porsche, and in the end with the spray, couldn't see the corner, fell off the road, and then rejoined. Benjamin Massey squeezed his way past, but Theobald and Kirsten could not, as they end up fighting each other increasingly so as a result of the rejoin there of Daniel Newman Racing red driver. But meanwhile, we did have this big bump for Jordan Butler at the end of lap number 1. This was the first big casualty of the race. The full tilt virtual motorsport driver went into 130R, and the rear of the car just simply lifted up and let it go. And for Jordan Butler, a big spin, and suddenly, unfortunately, double whammy there in terms of contact. Oh, goodness me, and we didn't see that Porsche getting caught up there, and I believe that's Adrian Howard being collected. So what happened to Adrian Howard in that situation? Well, Howard was behind it all, so there was the 2 widers. There was also a car that had been propelled off the road. That was Chris Cole going around there, the DCW Racing driver, and Adrian Howard in the end being collected amongst the madness of the Mercedes cars, hitting each other after Jordan Butler's initial spin. But then on lap number 2, we had a bit of a big moment for Schubert Cardozo. This was a bit of a demise for the Inter Racing Team driver, who at the time was chasing after a chance for a podium. And as he made his way up the hill through at turn number 7, the rear of the car just said no. Around it went, and thankfully did not hit the barrier and stayed on the inside. Otherwise, I think we would have had a bit of a nightmare situation for our drivers. But well done to Schubert Cardozo for keeping that together as much as possible. We then had this for Alfred Kirsten. And this was Kirsten, the Simstrap by Glasset Racing driver. He was making his way through turn number 7 as well, and went round before he even got to the apex of the corner. Easy mistake to make, but a nightmare one to recover from. So it all went a bit wrong for him. We then had this big month for Brad Pickett, and I believe this was him rejoining. So how did he get there in the first place is what we want to know. The answer is this. So we go back in time a bit earlier on, and this was a huge jump for Pickett and a couple of other drivers. So at the time, found himself battling with a relentless race machine, Charlie Walker, I believe. Side by side they went, and both drivers coming into contact. I think Walker's hit the white line and collected Pickett as a result, and both being sent out there. A nightmare moment for both of them. This is what it looked like on board from Charlie Walker's perspective. So Walker trying to look for the move, and in here so close to Pickett, ducked back to the outside. In fact, tapped him on the rear initially, and then on the outside, Pickett came across there, it looks like under braking. So I think the car pulled to the left, Walker on the outside, and at that point he had nowhere to go other than the barrier. So unfortunately for both drivers, that's going to be a bit of a contentious one there, and I suspect the stewards will keep an eye on it. And we did have this for Thomas Weston. This was only a few months later, going on to lap number 3. Weston was making his way down in towards turn 1 and 2, and the rear of the car started to let go. Leon Seeley in the end, oh goodness me, and Seeley in the end being propelled forward by his teammate Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, who couldn't see what happened, and by the time they figured it out, it was too late. So unfortunately Thomas Weston went round, and Leon Seeley fell consequential to it. As we do come back, ladies and gentlemen, to your live racing after this for Eddie Theobald, because this was a big incident for the club driver. And the 152 was making his way up towards what was Kobayashi hairpin, went onto the brakes way too skiddishly, and went straight into the side of Ashley Shucksmith. And that fills in as to why Shucksmith is missing the front bumper. And well, that brings us up to speed with the stories, ladies and gentlemen, as we now come back to your live racing action. And well, we do appreciate we spent a bit of time in replays there, as that's Ross Young. As soon as we come back, we found another Clark St James with DXT machine off the road, and he goes to rejoin, but very gradually does so. And for Ross Young, things have gone very backwards. But as he tries to get it back together, well, we've also had a bit of difficulty for Brandon Dyer. And in fact, we are going to take a quick replay, because this was the man who was leading and battling for the lead at the time with Raz Harper. And this has just happened on lap 6. Brandon Dyer was defending in towards 130R. A small tap to the rear of the car. And in the end, Brandon Dyer being turned all the way round, but did a perfect pirouette to get put back on the straight and narrow. And well, contentious contact between them, no doubt about it. And this was on board Raz Harper. Staying over to the right, Dyer's going to try and come across here, and in the end, a tiny touch. I think Raz Harper on the outside line did touch the water on the outside, and that caused the car to travel a bit more, and well, definitely a difficult one there, but I'm sure they'll talk about that one after the race. But still, we come back to your live racing now. We're going to stay with us for some time, as we have a couple of drivers still trying to make progress, including none other than Adam Lynch. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get the replay of what exactly happened to Jack Giles from the lead of the, I do believe, the club class. I think we haven't actually got a replay on standby for that, but we'll have to wait and see what we do with that. But meanwhile, Adam Lynch back into lead that category, and well, as he tries to pull away, he's got James Fraser 4 seconds behind, Rob Gregg with them, and well, he tries all gradually coming forward. But I can see Paul Thompson say that VAR check on that one, and well, hopefully we don't have a VAR system, at least not the one that they have in football, because it does seem to be a bit of a controversial system at that. But I do get what you're going from there, Paul. Definitely a bit of a steward's vote there for what will be Brandon Dyer and Raz Harper, I suspect. But coming back to some battling, Luke Van Gortel and Bobby Moss, they're fighting over second place in the interclass at the moment. And Will Van Gortel missing a front bumper on his progress through the field. So he's gone from 8th to 2nd in the interclass. But what has it cost him? It's cost him a bit of bodywork along the way. We're not quite sure where it's gone, but it's gone somewhere. And how it's ended up leaving the car, that we don't know as well. As we do see, Annie Jones continues to chase after them. The DCW Racing Blue Dry, keeping it all cool, calm and collected. Now, other things to consider strategically here today. Suzuka is a strategy circuit where overtaking is just as possible in the pit lane as it is on the road, in fact even more so. And with the fact we've got plenty of rain coming down, and we're expecting this race to be on the wet tyre for the majority, if not the whole race, well, in fact we'll come back to that fault shortly, because Martin Kenyon here getting a better run out of turn 7 and clears Samba Hockley just like that. The Lamborghini driver, however, gets it wrong at a break-in. It goes into the gravel trap and take the 1, and suddenly that move that was looking absolutely beautiful is not looking beautiful at all. As hold up, James Fraser, what's he doing parked there? We were wondering why there's a car on the inside of the road, and well, in the end, on the grass, James Fraser, the man who's running his second in club class, it's all got around for him as he drops down the order. Ashley Shucksmith now looks for fourth place in club off of him. Is Shucksmith going to get to the inside to come Ashley hairpin? The answer is yes, he will. But Fraser tries to come back, but he knows he won't be able to do that straight away, as Ashley Coutland just tucks him behind. And well, both of the Ashleys right now trying to work together to make progress, and they will try to clear Fraser as quickly as they can. And Fraser right now, I think, just settling down here and letting the relentless racing driver go. How on earth did he get there? Well, we're going to find out very shortly. First off, we are going to go back and find out what happened to Jack Giles. Here's what happened to him on lap number 3. And this was Giles making his way out the pit lane. He'd already gone to the pit, so I think he was involved in an incident earlier on. And in Sunny, as he made his way out the pit lane, just simply tried to go a bit wider at turn 1. The car let go entirely. So for Jack Giles, this race has gone from good to bad to worse. But for James Fraser, this is what happened to him. This was only moments ago. As the Moonshine's Racing Club driver made his way into Degner 1, into the corner, the rear of the car started to slide loose. In fact, took too much curb on the exit there, and the car was still loose on the rear end, and it was a slow spin around there. A bit of an unusual one, but James Fraser, in the end, finds himself just away from the barrier, thankfully, as we come on back to your live racing. About 20 minutes of this race complete. We've still got the best part of 40 to go, and we're definitely a lot of big moments thus far, but where's all the battling right now? Well, Ashley Shucksmith, he has got Ashley Coutland closed up behind him again. As they come down, and Coutland try to go to the inside. Well, he's going to straddle the pit exit line there, but if you straddle it, you're okay, because you don't believe, ladies and gentlemen, we have had the broadcast just briefly cut out for a brief moment there. We're not quite sure what's happened. It does seem to be an issue outside our control. So if you've just seen a black screen for approximately 4 to 5 seconds, do not panic. that it's not on your end. Do not adjust your TV set. That's on our end here. It seems like the broadcast transmission out to YouTube was briefly interrupted. But again, that is outside of control here. It does seem to be a bit of connectivity between us and YouTube. But the good news is, in that 5 seconds, you haven't missed anything. She will have called, I do believe, the tail end of Ashley Coulton passing Ashley Shucksmith. Oh, my goodness, and we're going to catch this live right now as Mikhail Abasek in the middle of the road, and Ashley Shucksmith coming straight into the side of him. Abasek gone round, and, well, an absolutely huge knock to the side of the car there, and understandably, he's going to tow to the pits is Abasek, and for Shucksmith, that Ferrari is still going. I don't know how it's still going, to be fair. I thought that contact would have been enough to force it to a meatball flag, but Shucksmith right now on the Ferrari, that's definitely not looking happy. In fact, look at the way that front left tyre from the driver's perspective is not pointing in a straight line there when he's trying to drive on a straight piece of road. That car is crabbing, as we like to call it, where the suspension is completely out of alignment, at least on the front left, and as a result now Shucksmith is going to try and soldier on as much as possible. But as we do see, Crystal Petty ahead of Ross Young coming down through the corners. Right now the 191 driver here with Ross Young and Benjamin Massey behind. It's not easy to go as Shucksmith goes around in the rear of your picture, and for the privateer it's all got around and wrong. It's not going right at all for the 172 driver at all. But back to Daniel Page we come. The Daniel Newman racing a red driver who keeps Milton Tomlinson-Dennis behind him for now. And give credit where it's due to Tomlinson-Dennis. He has made his way through this field after starting all the way down in what was 24th place. Tomlinson-Dennis is flying out there. And as the Samantha Tan Racing driver continues to pick up the pace and pick up the places, how much further can he go? We'll have to see. Can he potentially today bring home a win? If he was to bring his 4th win home in this manner, I'll tell you one thing, if he doesn't take the championship crown this season, he'll definitely feel like a champion either way. He's going on an absolute mission. But further back, Brandon Dyer battling with Ben Woodgate here in the battle of the two McLarens. They're coming up towards what will be Degner 1, and well, looking for the move there, but it's not going to work out for Dyer as he has to give up the place to Woodgate. So Woodgate gets back into 6th place in the Pro Class and 7th overall. But I suspect it's going to be a question of when, not if, we'll see them side by side once again. We're coming up towards will be a turn at number 11 onto the brakes. Well, Brandon Dyer right now feeling a lot more confident, and well, as he rolls away through, the car twitches away from him. That's not the way you want it to go, and that's going to be Eddie Firmo trying to unlap himself here in the McLaren, in the Mercedes. And well, Brandon Dyer wants that back as Firmo goes very sideways there, coming through turn number 12, and then he gets the car back on the road just about, but not without a near miss there. So understandably, Brandon Dyer making small mistakes. They're all making small mistakes, but all trying to keep it together just about on the road, at least at this time. But as the racing continues, Jared Love, he finds himself under pressure from Ben Woodgate. Woodgate would like an opportunity to get involved where he can. As they make their way down towards 130R, we'll have to wait and see what is going to be the game plan here. Does Woodgate go for it now? Love puts himself right in the middle of the road, but that's more to find the ideal line into the corner. The rain has stopped the best part of 20 minutes into this race. Now we're seeing the sun come out, so we will start to see a bit of a dry line gradually form, as it's going to be Brandon Dyer trying to look on as Ben Woodgate now makes the move out the inside of Jared Love. And what a lovely move there from Ben Woodgate into 6th place overall. But as we look up the road, here comes Daniel Page, but behind him there's a Lamborghini. That is going to be Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. He taps the rear of Page's car, sweep into the outside, but in the end, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, like a rocket, makes his way around the outside of Page, and in the end, Daniel Page has got no response other to let that go. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis now up into 4th place, and at the rate of knots he's charged at, the only driver who's quicker than him right now are the top 3. Nils Balkarga in particular, he's just at the fastest lap of the race, a 2 minute 18.19, and the NJP Performance driver definitely getting a move on here, and he is a very strong driver in these wet conditions. Do remember, of course, all the way back at Fuji, he was the one who took the oval and the pro win with it. He put an absolutely brilliant performance together, and well, the German driver absolutely faultless there, and right now looking faultless to a T as he comes on through. Meanwhile, I think we've had... Oh, hold up a second. That is Ludwig Gertl at MJK Sim Racing. He's gone straight on. Well, he's got towed to the pits. Now, has there been some contact with another driver? Ben Woodgate's been caught up in something. There is Woodgate. He's just parked up there on the inside of turn number 7. We need a replay of that. Woodgate's car is damaged. I think that's going to be towing. But what's happened? Here's a replay. So, this was Woodgate making his way through turn number 6 into 7, and Jared Love's just behind. He'd only just cleared him. Rear of the car completely let go. It went around, and then did Ludwig Gertl go into it? Yes, he did. And Woodgate in the car rolled backwards onto the road. And the Inter Racing Team driver, I think there'll be question marks as whether he did hold his brakes or not. And for Ludwig Gertl, understandably, he would be fuming that they had nowhere to go. This is what it looked like from Van Gertel's perspective. And as he made his way through the corner, he won't be able to see Woodgate going around. He will now see it now and think, okay, slid to the right, and then Sonny, hold up a second, it's coming back to left. And for the MJK Sim Racing driver for the Netherlands, that is a shunt, it's a crunch to the front right, and that car is going nowhere else. It is out of the fight. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to your live racing. And, well, commiserations there for Ben Woodgate and also for Luke van Goertel. And, well, we've still got over half the race to go. And right now, this race is definitely kind of a bit of an attritional race as much as it is one about pace. But then again, it's going to be equal in hand because you may be the quickest driver out there, but if you can't keep it on the road, then suddenly it could all go very wrong. Meanwhile, some drivers who are carrying on as best as possible. Philip Harris. Well, he decided to pit on lap number 6. That would have been the best part of around 15 minutes into the race. Now, what we were trying to say earlier, but then all the battling and all the madness kicked off again, is strategically today, this race has probably the biggest pit window of them all. Now, the Suzuka circuit in general is not overly aggressive on fuel, but when you make it rain here as well, it's definitely going to be one of those circuits whereby fuel usage will be low. That does not necessarily make a no-stop possible. I think we're well out of the realms of a no-stop, even with our slightly larger 75% fuel tanks for this season. But you will see that pit window is probably going to be from around about 12 minutes into this race all the way through to about 10 minutes left to go. So therefore, the fact that Philip Harris is coming on lap number 6 tells you that he's decided to go for the undercut strategy, and his thought process is essentially come into the pits, get the tyres cooled back down as the rain was about to go away, and then that way he can now really use these wet tyres as much as humanly possible. As the tries come through, Patrick Falconer saying, can't hear us here in the commentary booth. Well, please let us know, ladies and gentlemen, if that is an issue that has occurred all across the board. Well, it does seem as though something may have gone a little bit wrong. So we're just checking in there with you guys and girls to see whether the microphone has cut out here in the commentary booth. Please bear with us. As we just see the comment there from Patrick Falconer. It does seem as though something may have gone wrong, but in the meantime, we'll keep an eye on all the racing's carrying on. And, well, definitely seems as though today's broadcast blighted with some slight technical issues. Well, unfortunately, that's the way it does go sometimes. But as we do look to Raz Harper, making his way through 130R and carrying on. And Patrick Falconer saying he can't hear anything, and Mikhail Osek saying now it's working. So not quite sure what's happened there. Either way, sorry to see if it's gone a bit wrong there for you, Patrick. And, well, hopefully it's now come back. If not, it might be an issue on your end. That's the only other thing I can think of here. I can't think of anything else at the moment. Thank you for confirming, Mikhail. As meanwhile, Raz Harper and Richard Simnor do come on down. But do let us know if it did cut out for a brief amount of talk, because we're not seeing anything on our end. But then again, it could be something that's outside of our control. It does seem as though some things are outside of our control today, albeit we carry on the journey. And, well, as Raz Harper has Richard Simnor gradually closing on him. Well, meanwhile, Niels Balkarget a little bit further behind, but still catching up as well. And, well, right now, Balkarget and Tomlinson-Dennis are the two quickest drivers out there. They're definitely putting in a bit of a heroic stint. And as they roll the way around, Tomlinson-Dennis that last time around, a 2 minutes 16.35. And, well, the spray on these cars definitely going away, as Patrick confirms there that we are back. That's great to see. So not quite sure what's happened there. I do apologise for that. We'll have to look into that one in preparation for the next broadcast of the week's time. That's the first time that's ever seemed to have happened for some reason. But as our drivers carry on, and here at Japan, it's definitely looking to be right now. Conditions are getting quicker and quicker, and in fact, that dry line is getting more and more noticeable. Well, Tomlinson-Dennis right now for Samantha Tan Racing. He's looking to be the one who's capitalised on the conditions the most of everyone, as Daniel Page and Jared Love are a bit further back. But we can see that the interleader right now has got Bobby Moss trying to fast approach him. Brandon Dye is the splitter of the two in the pro category. And well, it's looking very close in terms of the pro and inter classes. Meanwhile, in the club class, Adam Lynch, the privateer, is still seemingly fully in control at the moment and looking very safe. He does have a 3.2 second gap to Rob Gregg, but that gap is growing little by little rather than falling. Although saying that, last lap Rob Gregg was 2 seconds faster by comparison, so it's been growing at least at the start of this lap. It does look as though Rob's found a bit more pace. Steve Hughes, well, he's there with him and staying right within arm's reach, so your top three of club may be getting closer shortly. The whole field is spread. Remember, Philip Harris is the driver we have got the biggest question mark on. We are wondering whether the Euro Titans endurance driver, by going for the undercut strategy, may suddenly gain a lot of ground here. But we'll have to see what the 1-2-1 driver can do through this strategy, because he's got to pick his way past drivers who have not pitted, one of whom is Martin Kenyon. So if this works out for Harris, it's definitely going to be a stroke of genius, but he's got some time to find out. As Jared Love has been passed by Brandon Dyer off camera, so that's a change for 6th place overall. But for Love, the bigger problem he's now got is the fact he's got Bobby Moss right behind him, and that's going to be the battle for the interlead as they go on to lap number 14. Now we do look back, you can't see too much beyond the spray there, but you can just see the set of headlights, and that is Moss's Porsche 992. And Moss inching closer and closer as they make their way in towards turn number 1. And Andy Jones, he's the Acura NSX. The Pro Driver's trying to stay with them as Love goes a little bit wider there at turn number 1 and just about keeps it on the road. But definitely right on the limit right now as we're getting deeper and deeper in. It's this race, and with it, well, the circuit is getting a little... And as the broadcast briefly cuts out and comes back again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really not sure what's going on today, unfortunately, technically wise. So we're just going to carry on. So if you have just had a black screen, we do apologise for that, but that is something definitely outside of our control here. I think it may be an issue on YouTube side, but Richard Simnor right now in to lead this race, getting ahead of Raz Harper. That has happened before the cutout there of the broadcast, and we need to understand what exactly has happened. Well, we are going to get a quick replay of that now. So this was Richard Simnor chasing after as Harper going up towards Spoon Curve back on lap 13, and Harper went into the braking zone. The car pulled one way then the other, and Harper then went deep into the corner, and Richard Simnor just tucked up the inside and said, "I'll take that, thank you very much." So in the end, a small mistake for Raz Harper, and that's what opened up the doorway. And with that, we also did have this for Bobby Moss versus Jared Love only moments ago. This was coming out of turn number 7, and Bobby Moss trying to sweep up the inside, and was he able to get it done? He was initially, but too wide they went in towards Deg the 1 onto the brakes, and in the end, well, I think there was a tiny touch between them, but Bobby Moss went wide either way at Deg the 1, and Jared Love was able to hold the position. But we now come back, and as we do, well, the fighting has continued, and in fact, Bobby Moss has now found his way ahead, and we'll take a look back how he tried it the first time. He's now found it his way past the second time of asking, so we're going to need to get a look back at that shortly, but you can see the change as Richard Simnor now moving into the lead and away at the very front of the field. Fastest laps coming in from drivers, but Milton Tomlinson-Dennis now setting the fastest lap at 2 minutes 16.1. Wow, Jared Love and Bobby Moss together here as they come down the hill. And as they do so, the DDK with RaceStatBot.com drivers struggling, it would seem. And well, it does seem as though the Ferrari right now started to lose a little bit of pace. Bobby Moss is already 1.2 seconds away as they come down towards turn number 1 once again. And the Scotsman absolutely pushing onwards here, but I think the problem is he's now losing out. I wonder where he's cut those tyres a little bit too much. Just now behind a fellow Ferrari driver looking for a way past. He's going to look to the outside for turn number 3. This is not necessarily going to work here, but definitely poking, pushing and probing as much as he can. And welcome through and up the hill through the S's right now. Will no go for a move at this time. No, he'll wait. He'll probably try to go for it, going through turn number 7 up towards Degda 1. That might be a place to go for it, but it is going to be a bit of a risky one if he is going to throw it all in there. And we'll see what he can do as he comes up the hill. And the answer is going to be no move at the moment. It's just now slivers all over the place. The car definitely not looking to be in the happiest of places, at least at this time. But as he carries on, we do take a look back at how exactly Bobby Moss got the move done on Jared Love for the lead of the Interclass. So this was coming into a Spoon Curve, and Love in the end, well, he just didn't have the best of runs there. Bobby Moss dived up the inside, got alongside, a little bit of rub between the two, but nothing more than that. And in the end, Bobby Moss absolutely smooth and sweet there with regards to that move, and that is the lead of the Interclass now into his hands and trying to break away from Jared Love. We break away from the replay and come back to your live racing. Still plenty more to come. And, well, speaking of progress, here is some progress for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis as he chases after Nils Balkaga. And the battle for third place now only 3 tenths apart. And they're only 2 seconds away from Raz Harper, who's still within a second of Richard Simnor. So we've got a top 4 here overall in Pro that could just yet all start to fight each other. But going into Casio, it is still going to be Balkaga ahead at the moment. An NJB performance driver, Make sure not to make a single mistake at this time. Tomlinson-Dennis a bit further back there. That's going to be a natural ebb and flow of the lap. As meanwhile, we have seen what is a bit of a close-up here between Benjamin Massey and Ashley Coupland. As they head into the braking zone at 4 Kobayashi Bend. And Benjamin Massey right now taking a look up the inside. Is that going to work? The answer is no. Flashes headlights there, trying to get into ahead of Coupland for what will be the 11th place in the Pro class. But right now, Coupland too far away for him to be able to make a potential move. We'll see what's to come next between them, as the drivers make the way onwards towards the next braking zone of Spoon Curve. But right now, James Fraser not too far behind. And after what went wrong for him earlier on, well, James Fraser right now for Moonshine's Racing Club trying to make amends as quickly as he possibly can. And understandably, he won't want to make the same mistake twice, which was that odd spin at Degda 1. And Monty Kenyon just behind there with Ross Young 4 seconds behind. You'll see Ross appear in the camera shot very briefly. There he is. And we're still without his front bumper for Clarkson James with the XT. And that McLaren right now definitely looking to be not in the happiest of spots. But to be fair, still more time out there. And once he gets the fast repair on, I think it's going to be a much happier car. Although the fact that he's carrying on with it in the state it's in at the moment must mean he's happy with it to some degree. Although the car doesn't look happy, I can tell you that. But we have had quite a rate of attrition for this race. We have so far lost, I believe, all the way down to 32nd place. So therefore it does mean that we've lost along the way Ben Woodgate, Eddie Fearbold, Luke van Gertel, Bradley Pickett, Chris Cole, none other than Mikhail Abasek, also Shibot Cardozo, Kyle Roy, and we've also lost out there Adrian Howard, and also Jack Giles, Charlie Walker and Max Dean. The wet weather and the conditions here at Suzuka definitely have proven treacherous and caught out the best part of approximately a quarter of the field. But everyone who's still out there pushing on as much as they possibly can, and James Fraser's Martin Kenyon for very close company now. As Kenyon looking for a potential move, but it's not going to work here for now. He's going to try and set up a switchback wherever possible, and you'll think about it coming through turn 5 into 6. Coming over the rise, and Fraser in the air goes a little bit wide, touches the grass, and Kenyon will sneak up the inside there. Well, small mistake, but big consequences, and that's going to be Martin Kenyon now up into 19th place. But cars in the pit lane, Sam Hockley minus a rear wing, and Christopher Petty in the pits as well, but Petty's making his way back out. So Hockley then goes on to what will be the Jacks. Meanwhile, we see Christopher Petty coming down, and as he does so, well, he'll rejoin the race, and he'll rejoin it in 7th place in the club class. So he will be behind Philip Harris. Dwayne Hoffman is still carried on. Hoffman has yet to pit as we understand it, but the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport Trial doing a very solid job at the moment, having started 10th in the club class and just staying out of trouble. Trouble did find him earlier on in the race, but since then he's definitely stayed out of it as much as possible. But up to at the front of the field, Raz Harper, the man who's starting second at the moment. He has got Niels Balkaga and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis still close behind as these drivers come down through turn 6 and towards 7. And we've got that three-way fight building, but they are closing up to Simnor actually. And Simnor right now not looking as confident as he was around 2 to 3 laps ago. Simnor trying to make it back-to-back victories and really extend that championship lead if he can. Coming through the right-hander of Degda 1, Harper, Balkaga and Tomlinson-Dennis, they all have sprung alive a little bit. Meanwhile, Bobby Moss around the outside of Brandon Dyer. Well, who would have thought that? The SimRacing Collective Esports interleader is now picking up the pace. I wonder whether now that we're seeing the circuit dry up a little bit, those who have set the car up not necessarily to be a master of the wet conditions, but to be a little bit more of a hybrid setup, whereby the car is more towards the dry than the wet, these cars might be coming live. And looking at the spray contrails of the back of the cars as well, they're getting lesser. Surely we're not going to see dry tyres. In fact, Sam Hockley has gone on to slick tyres, I believe, and we have also got, has Steve Hughes decided to go on to with slick tyres? He is. We've got a lot of smoke in the pit lane there for a couple of cars, but Steve Hughes has gone to slicks, as is Jordan Butler. So we'll have to wait and see. Hockley, Hughes and Butler all on slick tyres. Can they get those tyres up to temperature? Sam Hockley's just had it off, so he hasn't so far got up to temperature, but if they can, then suddenly this race could completely turn its head, and it might be a race now of survival to get to the slick tyre if they can. As Steve Hughes ran wide at turn 1 into 2, so not enough grip there at the moment. But the wet tyres won't be struggling in terms of temperatures. They'll be struggling for grip because they have been worn down quite a bit since the start of the race. Whereas Harper, meanwhile, well, an absolute purple middle sector for that lap. Just the final sector, he didn't quite get that together the way he wanted it to. We're coming up towards lap number 18 for all these drivers now. Richard Simnor, a 2 minute 16.672. Harper, a 2:16.287. Balkaga, a 2:16.017. And Tomlinson-Dennis, a 2:16.550. So, it does seem as though the pace of the race is very quickly evolving. And, well, given the dry times are typically in the region around 1 minute 59 to 2 minute zeros, depending on track temperature and also weather conditions, we are progressing towards the dry times quite nicely. So that does mean right now this circuit, whilst it is wet tyres still, it would seem, for those at the front of the field, some are willing to gamble on going to the slicks, and if they can pump the tyre temperature into the car, they may just be able to find a lot of pace out there. But Steve Hughes is really going to be your biggest litmus test of the wet weather versus dry weather conditions. And with 20 minutes to go, let's see what Hughes is going to be able to do. Because right now, at least, it does seem as though the wets are still the most viable tyre. I don't think it's going to be long before we start to see a potential crossover point here, and everyone's trying to survive to it as best as they can. Justin Noel closing up to the back of Brandon Dyer. And Brandon Dyer has fallen off a cliff in this race ever since really what has been that lap number 15. Dyer's pace has just completely plummeted. And Noel right now all over the back of like a bad rash. And if so, it could be a situation where Brandon Dyer might need to consider coming in. I wonder whether those wet tyres are gone, because the Altitude 3M Esports drive went very wide there at Degner 1. Had to mount the curb and try to keep it pointed in a straight line. But right now, this is not the McLaren that we saw right at the start of the race in terms of the comfort factor. I think Brandon Dyer, now the circuit is getting warmer, those tyres are not feeling happy at all. So that's going to be just now trying to go around the outside of him there at Kobayashi Bend, but they make a bit of contact. And I think Brandon Dyer then coming a little bit across base that camera angle, but to be fair, that's just one camera angle or many. So we're not going to point the finger at Brandon Dyer. Each driver have their own opinion as well, but look at that dry line that is forming. It is getting more and more noticeable now as they make the way to the middle sector, and indeed sector 3 as well. As we are hearing, now Steve Hughes is still trying to get a lap together on the dry tyre at the moment, so still keep an eye out for Hockley, Hughes and also Butler to see what they achieve. Jordan Butler in the pit lane with a black flag. That's a drive-through penalty for instant point. Meanwhile, we do see Richard Simnor still ahead of Raz Harper and Niels Bakage, and Tomlinson-Dennis queuing up behind as they go on to the next lap. But right on the board, the front bumper here of the Samantha Tan Racing 329. Still giving chase as they come down towards turn of 1. Onto the brakes they go. But these drivers right now, at least, staying as they were, although Bakage looking for a potential move there in towards turn 2. And Raz Harper just running a little bit wide, but keeps it just about there for now. Left into right they go at this point. No change, but understandably that Ford Mustang, where it was looking so confident at the start of the race, much like Brandon Dyer's McLaren, the confidence levels now are starting to go away. And that confidence may be fraying, but Richard Simnor with 1 second advantage. He will feel just that little bit safe, but even he's not looking too happy coming for the SECs right now. So therefore, it's a constant back and forth between these drivers as Justin Noel still glued to the back of Brandon Dyer, and all the big fighting right now is happening in the pro class. And well, looking a bit further back, here is your club leader of Adam Lynch. He's got Rob Gregg only a second behind. So Rob Gregg has survived where others have fallen, and is still with Lynch for now at least. But we'll have to see what's to happen, because Rob Gregg has been looking the quicker of the two drives over the last couple of laps. He just put a personal best together as well, matching Adam Lynch's time. But understandably, I think he's just holding back there behind Adam Lynch at the moment. As we know, Benjamin Massey has come into the pit lane, as has Thomas Weston. So more pit stops coming up. Has anybody gone to the slick tyre Altum? It doesn't look so at the moment. Steve Hughes, he's on the slick. What's it going to be this time as he heads towards that timing line? He's got 130R, and you can see he's trying to stay within the wheel tracks to the dry lines. Thomas Weston and Benjamin Massey both go to slick tyres as well. Sam Hockley, a 2 minute 23.8 was his previous lap, so that's still down on the wet pace. What about Jordan Butler? His time, well, unfortunately, we don't have an indicative. It's a 2 minute 21 now, we double check. So 2 minute 21 point, I believe that was 4 for Jordan Butler. So his time's still not quite in the wet tyre territory at the moment. But meanwhile, Thomas Weston is going to be leaving the pit lane. And as he does, well, the Jack Ashton privateer makes his way on around. And he'll see if he can get these tyres to work out. But Justin Noel makes his way down the back stretch, and as he does so, looking for a move here on Brandon Dyer. This will be for position, 6th place in pro, and wants to come up towards 130. It's going to be too wide here. Both of the wet tyres, of course, they'll have best possible grip. Dyer goes to turn in, but finds Justin Noel there. Noel in the end was not going to let him turn in until he turned in himself. Jared Love will squeeze around past Brandon Dyer, who was elbowed out wide as a result of that contact. So Jared Love moves up another overall position, but still needs to chase after Bobby Boss as Raz Harper, his teammate, is into the pit lane. There's Daniel Page going onwards, and there's Raz Harper parked behind the safety car and the catch fence. And well, Harper right now going to the slick tyre. He's decided to go the earliest of the top 4 in the pro category and overall. Now, is that the right call? Well, he's made the gamble, but I suspect the 3 at the front are all thinking the same thing right now, which is it's just a little bit too early. They need to get 1 or 2 more laps out of this tyre if they can. and then they'll be safe. So our prediction that this will be a wet weather tyre race all the way through and through was not correct. And indeed, the actual situation is the slick tyre comes into its own right at the end, it would seem. Now remember, it is 22 seconds end to end the pit lane to change over all 4 tyres, because of the fact it does take, well, it's 2 seconds to get the car up on the jacks and 5 seconds per tyre. Then they drop it down to the jacks. It's about 21 to 23 seconds. It does vary slightly from car to car. We do treat it as a 22-second stop approximately, and Raz Harper's made all 4 tyres change over, as Brandon Dye is doing the same. He's just left the pit lane and has done so. Black flag for Philip Harris and also for Thomas Weston, both for instant points. So they'll be going into the pit lane for a drive-through penalty. Martin Kenyon's in the pit lane. I believe he's now out of the race, unfortunately, due to an incident that we haven't quite seen on camera. And, well, right now this race is taking a turn. But in terms of the turnover, the one problem you have, of course, is that Philip Harris, who pitted early on, he pitted very early. He went back onto wet tyres when it was very wet, the circuit. He's got damage to the front of the car. So right now, I think for Philip Harris, that gamble of what was the undercut strategy coming in on lap 6 has completely failed him, unfortunately. So he'll come into the pit lane. He'll take this drive-through, which itself will completely cripple his aspirations to finish on the podium. But at some point, I suspect he's going to need to come into the pits or try to survive on a wet tyre that definitely will be getting very hot towards the very end and almost threadbare. Ashley Coupland, he's been chased by Corey Price at the moment for 10th place in the Pro Class and 14th overall. Where is Corey Price? In fact, Corey Price just had an error coming out of the corner, gone round the exit turn 7. He was there 1 minute and then he was not, but thankfully we can catch him on camera. Nils Balkarga goes on to another lap. Meanwhile, we come back to the front of the field. He leads for NJB Performance, and Richard Simnor comes in from the lead, and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis does the same. So they've decided now's the time to come in. Where is Raz Harper in all of this? Well, Harper is making his way down towards 130R. So we look to the blimp camera as he powers his way through the left-hander. Those dry tyres at the moment, they are lapping about the same as the wet pace they were delivering when they were in good condition. And Harper goes deep. That is not good news for him, so he's going to lose out. And suddenly Richard Simnor comes out the other side of the pit lane. It was not the right time to go to the dry tyre for Raz Harper. He's gone 1 lap too soon at least, as car rejoins us Alfred Kirstein. And Tomlinson-Dennis goes around the outside of the way with Dane, but now have they gone 1 lap too early? Remember, they come out the pit lane, the tyres were in jackets, so they will have a little bit of temperature, but they'll lose it driving on the water patches coming out the pit lane. That dries the latest and the slightest of them all, so nobody really drives on it. And Nils Balkarga, meanwhile, staying out on his wet tyres for as long as possible. In fact, Tomlinson-Dennis has stayed on his wet, so has Richard Simnor. Well, my apologies, I didn't see that. They've both decided it's not a good idea to go to the slick tyre. They're going to try and survive on the wet tyre. Now, the advantage they get out of this is the fact their stop was only for fuel. 11 seconds stationary for both of them approximately, and what that means is they do gain approximately 11 to 13 seconds over those who change all 4 tyres in the pit lane. It does help them out, it buys them a buffer, but is this a race where going to that slick tyre actually is going to come into its own literally right at the very end? This is going to be so close in terms of the cutover point for whether the slicks are going to be the right tyre. We can see Brandon Dyer all over the back of Jared Love, and Love right now the second place into driver, and trying to keep it together as best as possible. They are on the slicks, these drivers. The problem, of course, is the fact when you're on a slick tyre and a circuit is drying, the racing line is going to become dry, but the rest of the circuit is not. So defending, all you've got to do is hold the dry line. Albeit going into Degner 1 there, both drivers have to make it side by side. Brandon Dye goes round the outside, and a lovely move there from the Altitude 3M Esports driver makes that happen and moves into 8th place. Jared Love falls back, and Bobby Moss is the next target, 2.5 seconds up the road for Dyer, the interleader. Adam Lynch, meanwhile, he's come out the pit lane. He's gone to slicks, as has Rob Gregg. Greg trying to catch up still. There is Greg chasing him through the S's, and look who's behind. Steve Hughes. Hughes did pit for those tyres, and he's currently the fastest driver on the circuit, Steve Hughes. He's got the tyre temperature, and he set a 2-minute 12.01 that last time around. To put that in perspective, that is 7 seconds quicker than what most of the field is doing, and our fastest pros out there, he is currently 5.5 seconds quicker than the likes of Milton Tomlinson-Dennis and Richard Simnor. So Steve Hughes, he could yet steal this away, but the thing is, he's got to try and quickly pass Rob Gregg and Adam Lynch before they get their slick tyres turned on. Now, Nils Balkarga is coming out the pit lane, and as he does so, he has gone to the slick tyre. So the man who was leading, he's gone the longest of everybody, and in the end, he has gone a grand total of 21 laps. He decides the slick's the right call as Justin Noel comes out the pit lane. In fact, Justin Noel does not come out the pit lane. He's carrying on, but he has already pitted, as we understand it. And as he comes on down, he pitted on lap 20. He stayed on the wets, but he's got A bit of a gap now to none other than what will be Daniel Page, and he'll be hoping those wet tyres hold on for long enough. So he brings them across onto the inside down towards turn one to cool them down, and then make sure to take the racing line to build up the pace. But now it's a gamble of trying to keep those tyres cool enough to survive on them. But we come back to Steve Hughes, who's getting ready to go on the attack here, coming up towards the left-hander 130R. Wiper on there just to get rid of any water droplets that are sprayed up for the car in front, but has to back off. And this is the problem now. Track position is king when you're all on slick tyres on a circuit that's still got plenty of water off the racing line. Now Hughes right now is going to need a huge run. He's going to need the cars in front of him to make mistakes. But the problem is Adam Lynch and Rob Gregg have been absolutely faultless so far. So Hughes, whilst this strategy has been inspired, it has not worked out exactly the way he's wanted it to. It has got him closer, but understandably the two in front have made the right call at the right time to change the tyres over. But going down towards turns 1 and 2. And Hughes still having to wait there, at least for now. And coming through that double right, the Welshman here glued to the back of the man in front. Quite able to make a move happen, it would seem, at least at the moment. But weaving away through the S's at this time. And we can see the 107 driver right now, just perfects his line very nicely. And, well, the problem is, of course, that in that dirty air, that's going to be heating the front end up. But, of course, he'll appreciate a bit more tyre temperature perhaps at the front. It may help with a little bit of grip. Meanwhile, we've got just Noel still ahead of Daniel Page. And in fact, Noel's been caught up to by Page very rapidly over the course of this lap so far, as Bobby must have to go defensive there versus Brandon Dyer. So, as the battle for 5th place in the Pro Class comes to a crescendo, and in fact, Daniel Page is going to make a move here down the back stretch. And I think that's going to be said and done by the Mercedes driver on the Ferrari. Well, the interleader of Bobby Boss right now has got growing pressure of Brandon Dyer, and Jared Love's not too far behind. But Page gets ahead. Bobby Boss now goes to the inside of Noel. And so it's a 2-for-1 special there, albeit just Noel won't be too grateful for being passed twice. I think he's going to be past Price now, so that's going to be Brandon Dyer on the back of him, lunge up the inside. Under braking, but in the end, Brandon Dyer's not able to get along. Just Noel carries it around outside to inside. And well, Jared Love has to tuck in behind in the end. And Love right now, he's going to look for the freeway fight. Here they come on towards the timing line. It's going to be the two pros on the outside. Jared Love, the second place runner in the interclass, tucking on in. And well, can he clear both of them? Can he move to 7th place? I think he can here. But of course, now he's got to get back onto the dry circuit. Those slick tyres always will struggle for grip, going through turns 1 and 2. But what a move from Jared Love there. Saw the fight between Brandon Dyer and Just Noel and said, I've got places to be, guys. You sort this out. But as he makes his way up into 7th place, will he now be given the chance to chase after Boss, or will Dyer come at him? As Dyer has cleared Noel as a result of that freeway fight, but understandably at what cost, and the cost is he's lost an overall position. Now Corey Price is just at the fastest lap of the race, a 207.31, so therefore Price is absolutely flying. And as they come charging on through in towards what will be the chicane, well, not the chicane, the S sequence of turns 3 and 4, the Darkwing racing driver here definitely getting a move on. But looking back to Steve Hughes, and we can see the 107 driver here still caught behind Gregg and Lynch. No change between them for now. And the freewheeler racing with UK SimRacing driver, well, as much as he's got the pace, now that Gregg and Lynch have got their pace together, it is really becoming a game of who makes the first mistake at the moment, as Hughes does so, going a bit too aggressively into turn 3, rolls off the racing line, and as a result, now that gap will open up just that little bit more. But we can see Andy Jones making a move there, coming out of Kobayashi hairpin versus Just Noel. Around the outside he goes through turn number 12. And well, it's going to be another place gain there for Jones. Moving up into 7th place in the Pro Class right now. This will be an impressive stint from the Acura driver. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, Richard Simnor under pressure from DCW Racing Blue. Looking good to be in a bit of a difficult situation. And right now, Simnor having to hold on. Tomlinson-Dennis, who indeed has made all the progress. Remember, they're both on wet tyres. And they are currently lapping about 1 to 2 seconds slower compared to Raz Harper behind. And the more they fight, with 6.5 minutes to go, we can see a 4-way fight for the win here. As Simnor's going to go all the way to the pit wall there, making sure that Tomlinson-Dennis doesn't get the inside. Here they come too wide in towards turn 1. Tomlinson-Dennis goes around the outside of the Lamborghini. Can he get it done? He's going to see Simnor hold him all the way as they make the way up towards the SS sequence. Now Simnor's going to be on the outside for turn number 3, but Tomlinson-Dennis runs a little bit wide and Simnor holds on for now. And Tomlinson-Dennis knows he has got a time clock ticking on him right now. He'll look at his rear mirrors and he'll see that Ford Mustang of Raz Harper, and also gradually closed up little by little the Lamborghini Nils Balkaga, who has had a bit of a moment on the road earlier on. And in fact, he's dropped out a little bit. So right now it's the top 3 fighting, and we can see they're just behind him. That's a driver trying to unlap themselves. But meanwhile, Raz Harper gets a huge run there coming out of turn number 7. Tomlinson-Dennis goes a bit wide. Harper's up in a 2nd place. So the DDK RaceStatBot.com team, whose could be the day where they land a big result. Harper right now is absolutely flying out there. He was lapping to the 205s that last time around. Meanwhile, the leaders 2-minute 11s. The wet tyre was not the right call. The slick tyre was the right call, but Harper's got to find a way past. But Simnor, of course, he can make this difficult. He's got to defend on the dry line. As we do see, trying to unlap himself in amongst them all, Philip Harris. But here comes Harper. Lovely run out to the hairpin. And through the right-hander at turn number 12. And at this point, surely it's going to be a done deal. And surely Raz Harper's going to get this done before they make the way into a spoon. He does, and Raz Harper retakes the lead in this race. What a set of moves there for Raz Harper. And as Richard Simnor now does have, tried to unlap himself from him. That's going to be the machinery of Philip Harris trying to squeeze on through. Well, right now those wet tyres, they've seen so much better days, and the slick tyre has just come alive so quickly. It's nothing like the prediction at all. And look behind this, Niels Belkarge taking third place on Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. The NJP performance driver could yet surprise everyone here by cream bar Simnor. Then chasing after Harper with only what is this lap plus another 2 to go. It's not over yet, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, I think we may have 3 more to go based on the pace we're seeing, as we had a disqualification for Thomas Weston, and that will be for instant points, I believe. He's been able to get enough there to be disqualified for what was third place at the time in the interclass. This race continues to have twists and turns in the tail, but right now 2 more laps to go. In fact, 3 more laps to go after the one they've just completed. And right now here comes Niels Belkarge looking for the move on Richard Simnor. He's going to go up the inside, and this will be for second place. Surely he's going to get this done by the time they come out of turn number 2. There's going to be no way Simnor can defend that anymore. Those tyres are gone. Those wet tyres have got nothing left in them, and will suddenly... It's now Harper who's got a 3-second gap over Belkarge, and will we see the German driver find a way to close him down? Well, meanwhile, whilst all that's playing out, further down the order, Christopher Petty find himself in a bit of a freeway scramble here. This is almost going to be 4 wide, and that's going to be, I believe, Elliott Court on the left of your picture, Christopher Petty in the middle. On the right, that's going to be Justin Noel, who's being put a lap down, or in fact, no, he's having a lap put back on him by what is the 2 drivers of Petty, and also Elliott Court. They unlap themselves, and just behind it all is Bradley Setters, who would ideally like to be clearing it all, but understandably, as in fact, I think Justin Noel managed to get back ahead of Elliott Court there, and Elliott Court is on a set of wet tyres. That explains it. Bradley Setters on the slicks, and Justin Noel as well is on the wet tyres. So Noel holds on for now, and well, Bradley Setters still trying to find a way to squeeze on through as Weston drops down the order as a result of his disqualification penalty. And right now, Bradley Setters here, eager to make a move, and understandably so, because he wants to try and take that 13th place of Court. Oh, that was a bit of elbows out there between the 2 of them. He manages to get through there, but Court won't be too pleased about that. And well, understanding Bradley Setters has got a long way to go to the next pro driver of Benjamin Massey in 17th place. 3 minutes left here. I think right now all he'll want to do is consolidate this place. He'll go to unlap himself off of Justin Noel, and the American driver on the wet tyres that has got no response other than to let that go. And as he heads into the braking zone, Corey Price now comes up for position on him for 10th place overall. That'll be 8th in class. Corey Price will go round the outside, and he'll get that done, and just like that, Corey Price takes the place. And now can we see Price potentially chase after Andy Jones? But that's a 17-second gap for him to close down. I think that's going to be a lot easier said than done with the time remaining, but Price at least gains 1 more place before this race is over, it would seem. But as Sam Hockley makes his way up the road in the background, well, meanwhile, Alfred Kirsten also makes his way up the road as he tries to chase after Dwayne Hoffman. Hoffman right now defending for 6th place in the club class, one of his better results of the season so far, but there's been contact between the 2. Hoffman sends out wide, he's going to come onto the road, and for Dwayne Hoffman, I don't believe it serves me. Oh, and that's going to be full contact. Christopher Petty comes in to see the incident. Hoffman had no way to stop that car in time, and he's stuck in the middle of the road at the moment, and well, that's definitely a dangerous place to be, but he'll tow to the pit lane. As meanwhile, going on top of penultimate lap, Richard Simnor's trying to keep Daniel Page. Behind him, Jared Love's there as well. And right now, all the places are slipping past him. As it's going to be a look around the outside for Jared Love. He just wants to get clear. He wants to chase after Bobby Moss. But the problem is right now, he finds himself with another 3 wide. It's with 2 pros. And it's going to be around the outside of Daniel Page. Tries to go, runs out of road, squeezes his way back into the inside of turn number 7. And Page right now is going all in. Here comes Brandon Dyer as well. And Richard Simnor's probably looking left, right, and centre, thinking, where are they all coming from? And well, the answer is those wet tyres just completely giving him nothing anymore. His pace has completely slipped off the proverbial cliff, and meanwhile the slick runners are all absolutely just flying past. But here comes Brandon Dyer looking for the move on the inside to outside on Page up into towards turn 11, but they make contact. There's contact between the 2 of them, and suddenly it's going to turn Page around, and Brandon Dyer goes to the grass and back to the ground where he gets himself back on. But Brandon Dyer gains that place in a very unconventional manner, and I suspect there's going to be a word between the 2 of them after the race on that one. But a very contentious moment that was. But meanwhile, whilst all that fighting is going on, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis still on the back of Richard Simnor. And, well, Simnor's not made it work. Tomlinson-Dennis hasn't made it work. They can still fight over fourth place in the Pro class, it would seem, until Daniel Page closes up. And Andy Jones isn't too far behind either. Could Jones here potentially steal away a top 5 finish today in the Pro class? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But goodness me, this race keeps us guessing all the way to the very end. Meanwhile, in the club lead battle, Adam Lynch is still leading by 7 tenths ahead of Rob Gregg, and Steve Hughes is behind. Right now, no change between the trio, though Rob Gregg is definitely looking more eager to make these moves with every single braking zone. But Andy Jones has just found his way past, I believe, the machinery. Well, in fact, no, he has not. We were seeing a bit of a false update there in our time and tally. Still chasing after Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. It's Daniel Page who's found his way past both Tomlinson-Dennis and Simnor all in one master stroke. Here comes Jones, looking around the outside as they go onto their final lap, onto lap 27 here. And right now, well, for Andy Jones, he clears one almost here. He's going to power his way behind Simnor, and now he's going to pick his way to the inside. It tucks at the inside to turn 1, and well, Simnor's not going to fight this. He'll just try and close the door at Tomlinson-Dennis, but Andy Jones up in the 5th, and the DCW Racing Blue Dry on course, one of his best results of the season here today, as now the gap to Daniel Page is 2 seconds, and I think that's going to be a bit far for him to close. Simnor's still trying to hold off Tomlinson-Dennis. Remember, this will be for the lead of the championship, given the small gap between the two of them. But if Simnor lands this result, it will just help him extend his lead a little bit more. But we look from him and the battle with him and Tomlinson-Dennis to our battle for the win. Raz Harper and Nils Balkarga, they're together, but Balkarga is closing exceptionally quickly. That last lap, Balkarga took the best part of what was 1.4 seconds out of our leader. In theory, he'll be with him going into the last couple of corners, but it's easy to say, it's another thing to do it. And right now, he's going to have to try and see if he can prove he can do it. As NJB Performance 331 continues to charge through Spoon Curve at the moment, and well, gradually getting closer and closer. Gap now 2.5 tenths there, but the concertina effect makes it a bit more pronounced. But he gets too close, runs wide, and for Balkarga, that might be it. That small mistake of just misanticipating when he could get on the throttle. Is that going to be enough now? Will it keep Harper safe? Well, they're going to be seeing the finish line come the next few corners, and as they make the way in towards 130R, Balkarga's going to keep pushing as much as he can. He's throwing everything at this to try and grab his second win of the season. But onto the brakes they go to Casio Triangle. Harper brakes right in the middle of the road, makes himself as wide as humanly possible. But now the last couple of corners they go, and for Raz Harper, for DDK with RaceStatBot.com, it's 100 metres away, and then there it is. It is a win today for the Ford Mustang Tri in Pro and overall, with Nils Balkarga taking second place just behind, and then it will be 11 seconds back to make it the inter-win for Bobby Moss. Back-to-back victories for the SimRacing Collective Esports Tri ahead of Jared Love, who takes the runner-up spot. But to be fair, his championship lead will hold firm. Brandon Dyer comes home 3rd in Pro, 5th overall ahead of Daniel Page, and then it will be Andy Jones who completes the Pro top 5, one of his best drives of the season thus far. Richard Simnor versus Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. He's going to run out of fuel. He runs out of fuel to Simnor at the finish line. And Tomlinson-Dennis will take the 6th place in Pro right at the end, gaining some ground on Simnor in the championship. Leon Seeley, meanwhile, he's got a bit of a journey to do before he sees the finish of his race. And well, here he is. And for Samantha Tan Racing, they made so much progress in the wet conditions, even when Seeley ended up being turned around as a result of an incident, which was helped to his own teammate. But understandably today, 8th place in the Pro class will be the furthest he goes, 10th overall. And then for Adam Lynch, well, it's back on top once again for the privateer. Back-to-back wins. And what a win it is by 6 tenths ahead of Rob Gregg, who takes his best result of the season. Corey Price will split the club finishes on the podium, and then it will be Steve Hughes who returns to the club podium, 14th overall, 3rd in the club class for freewheeler racing with UK Sim Racing. Ashley Koopman finishes 15th, rounds off the Pro top 10, and then it will be Benjamin Massey coming through in 16th place. What a drive for the Inox Motorsport drive, coming through from what was 39th in the starting order to 16th, and Ross Young is going to be one of your last finishes of this race on the lead lap as he heads towards the timeline for Clark St James with Dexterous Motorsports. And remember, this is the man who's in 3rd in the interclass right now, and I don't mean that in a derogative fashion, but that's how the interclass has gone. We've had a large volume of the interclass retire for this race today due to incidents or mistakes, and Ross Young finds the interpodium with 3rd place in class. I don't think he's going to quite believe it until he gets out the car. And for James Fraser, unfortunately, it's not a club podium today. The Moonshiners Racing Club driver falls 1 place short of it in 4th in class, 18th overall, but he will be your last lead lap finisher. Behind him, that's Christopher Petty, and Petty there completes the run to 7th place in the club class. Dwayne Hoffman comes on through, 27th overall, just missed out versus Petty, 8th in club, and then we will see Ashley Shucksmith to be your last finisher of this race as classified. He will finish it 2 laps down in 9th place in club, 29th overall. Goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a round of racing today. And indeed, Suzuka throwing a little bit of everything into the cards. And the wet weather definitely causes some absolute mayhem to play out, but also a strategy became increasingly important, particularly being able to get onto the slick tyre when it was the right time to do so. But as the drivers park up and cool them down, we take a look at the race results and the scenic view. And of course, all these race results subject to any steward inquiries. And as we can see, after an incredible 60 minutes of racing action for round number 7 in the Superstar Split edition of the Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12, brought to you by SimRacing International on iRacing for the Suzuka circuit, Raz Harper took victory in the end by only 2 tenths at the line versus Niels Balkaga. And for Raz Harper, well, that result is going to be his first win of the season and only his second podium. Of course, his first podium coming in round number 2 with that 3rd place finish. The DDK with RaceStatBot.com dry in the end, taking that win just ahead of NJP Performance's Niels Balkaga, who has another podium to his run this season. Albeit unfortunately for him, it's not the one he wanted, which was the win. And Bobby Moss, 3rd overall Interclass winner and back-to-back wins. And Sonny, for the SimRacing Collective Esports driver, this championship campaign isn't just looking to be a good one for second. Could he have a chance here, potentially trying to snag the win at the very end? Well, the TSRC Esports driver was definitely kept honest by Jared Love, who in the end missed out by half a second at the finish line for DDK with RaceStatBot.com, but the team are taking a huge haul of points, and their team's championship charge will definitely be buffeted by this. Brandon Dyer, 5th there for Altitude Freedom Esports. And the British driver in the end, in his McLaren, finding that today was definitely one of those days where it all seemed to go wrong as a result of the way the circuit was evolving, and then it all came back to him when the slicks went on the car. But it was that mid-period on the wet tyre where he struggled, which costed the chance of the win. Daniel Page was 6th for Daniel Newman racing red, just missed out, unfortunately, due to that contact between himself and Dyer at the Kobayashi hairpin on a chance of a podium. But he was just ahead of Andy Jones, who took 5th place in the Pro class of DCW Racing Blue and 7th place overall, and one of his best drivers of the season. And I do believe, in fact, that is his best result he's been able to achieve so far. We then did see in 8th place Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, just able to pit Richard Simnor in the battle between the STR and DCW Racing Blue drivers, both on the wet tyre at the end, and Leon Seeley, Tomlinson-Dennis' teammate, ran off the top 10. Adam Lynch, club winner, finished 11th there, the privateer, making it back-to-back club wins, and his championship lead will be extended, with Rob Gregg taking 2nd place, his best result of the season, overwhelming class in 12th, and the Moonshiners Racing Club driver was just ahead of Corey Price at the finish line for Darkwing Racing, and then it was Steve Hughes for Freewheeler Racing with UK Sim Racing, completing at the club podium. Ashley Coutland took 15th for Relentless Racing ahead of Benjamin Massey, with Ross Young being your 3rd place finisher in the Interclass. Goodness me, what a different postcode he ended up finishing compared to the top 2, but still, well done to Ross for surviving and making it onto the podium there for Clark St James for Dexterous Motorsports. And there's a further 11 seconds to James Fraser, who missed out on the podium with a mid-race incident at the Degners, costing that chance for a podium in the club class, and 18th overall, and he was the last driver to finish on the lead lap with Sam Hockley and Philip Harris completing the top 20 a lap down. And the female lap down finishes continued, with the 21st place going to Alfred Kirsten, who, given how his race started for the opening 15 minutes, to finish there in 21st for Simstrat by Glass Tech Racing, and with it, taking a 5th place finish. Well, he's definitely done very well, the Interclass driver today. Bradley Setters, 22nd ahead of Adam Smith, and then we did see Elliot Court, the pole sitter, who had it all go wrong in the early stages, and the DDK with RaceStatBot.com driver in the end having to settle for a dismal day at the office. Jordan Butler, despite the way it started, he's ended on a relative high, bringing on home at 6th place in the club class for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport ahead of Christopher Petty and his teammate Dwayne Hoffman. And there was Ashley Shucksmith, Justin Noel and Thomas Weston who completed your top 30. Shucksmith was 2 laps down, Noel was 3 laps down, and we did see Thomas Weston 4 laps down. And then that'll be the end of your classified finishers, I do believe, because in 31st, the first of our many retirees or non-finishers today, there was Martin Kenyon ahead of Ben Woodgate, with Eddie Fearbold, Luke Van Gortel, Brad Pickett, Mikhail Abasek, Chris Cole, Schubert Cardozo, Carl Roy, Adrian Howard, and also not to be forgotten about there, Max Dean, Jack Giles, and Charlie Walker, all completed those who retired, unfortunately, from this race. But we come to the class finishing positions, because this is where the points are made and paid. And as we can see, Raz Harper taking the win in Pro. It is first win of the season there by only 2.3 tenths. Ahead of Niels Balkaga and Brandon Dyer, a further 16 seconds behind, round off the podium, but having to fight every step of the way for it. Daniel Page, 4th place there, but there will be a bit of a conversation between himself and Dyer as to what happened in towards the Kobayashi hairpin, because it could have been Page's podium today, but it went the way of Dyer, and in the end Page had to settle for 4th, and Andy Jones completed the top 5 there with a brilliant drive for the Welshman. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis was 6th ahead of Richard Simnor, fighting his way past as Simnor running out of fuel literally meters before the finish line, and Leon Seeley took 8th place in class ahead of Corey Price and Ashley Coupland. Behind the Relentless Racing drive, it was best the rest for Inox Motorsports Benjamin Massey, and then we did see a lap down for both both Bradley Setters and Elliot Court, and 3 laps down the last classified finisher, Justin Noel. Ben Woodgate, Chris Cole, Schubert Cardoza and Charlie Walker sadly were non-finishers. Then to the interclass we go. And as we can see in the interclass, it was a win for Bobby Moss of the SimRacing Collective Esports Day by 4.5 seconds over Jared Love. And the DDK with RaceStatBot.com driver doing everything he could to try and come back, but Bobby Moss in the end proved to be just a little bit too quick and also able to clear the pros quicker than Love could do. Ross Young, meanwhile, third there for Clarkson James with Dexterous Motorsports, the best part of 1.5 minutes behind the top 2, but still on that lead lap, bringing on home a very valuable podium. And for him, this result stands there as what is his first podium of the season. Congratulations to Ross, an unconventional way of getting one, but still he's got it done. Sam Hockley at the priority sees his run of podiums come to a brief end, it would seem, and the British rider took 4th a lap down, but ahead of Alfred Kirsten. And then we did see behind the sim strap by Glass Step Racing Drive Eurotitans Endurance's Adam Smith. Thomas Weston was the last finisher, 4 laps down there, the privateer. And then we did see non-finishers for Martin Kenyon, Luke Van Gertel, Brad Pickett, Mikhail Awasek, Carl Wright and Adrian Howard. And then lastly in the club class, it was the story of the third tier, which was the story of Adam Lynch, making it another win this season, now standing on what is his 3rd win of the season, and his run of podiums continues, excluding the round that he missed, and the priority right now holding on. And indeed, the Moonshiners Racing Club driver Rob Gregg pushed him every step of the way, but couldn't find a way past, and Steve Hughes gambled by pitting early for the Slicks. It worked out for the most part when they came alive, but unfortunately, he still found himself behind the top 2. And couldn't find a way past a freewheeler raced by UK Sim Racing. James Fraser, the other member of the Moonshiners Racing Club, 4th place there, and it wasn't to be his day today to pick up a podium, but he was ahead of Philip Harris as the first driver to finish a lap down for Eurotitans Endurance. Jordan Butler took 6th place for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport and his recovery drive ahead of Crystal Petty and Dwayne Hoffman, and it was 2 laps down to Ashley Shucksmith, your last finisher of the club class. Then we did see non-finishes for Eddie Theobald, Max Dean and Jack Giles. Well, with that, ladies and gents, that concludes our rundown of the results from today, and what a race it has been. But we're not going to delay any further in getting ready for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers, because it'll be great to hear what they've got to say about the race there at Suzuka today. I'm sure it's going to be spicy what they've got to say, so don't miss a minute and don't go too far away, because we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes' time for our post-round interviews, if not sooner. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Sardply gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson-Dennis immediately go on the attack into the braking zone. 1 drive into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there at 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Fords, for the Ford and the Corvettes, the 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, up high, he decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. It is, but look at this for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind, Tim Perry under pressure, Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bang. Look back for the rear of your second place runner Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader leader here. Although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back. But here comes Lux in the tow. In towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way. And it's too wide on entry. But Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to third. But Callum Lux does clear another one. And now only one car is between him and an opportunity of victory here tonight. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being too wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time, as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be too wide with him, but too wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes for the switch back there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time to kick off our post-round interviews. And who better to kick things off than with a first-time pro winner today? Because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Raz Harper. Raz, good evening to you. A first pro win of the season in absolutely treacherous conditions at Suzuka, but you've made it happen. You must be over the moon.
Yeah, I'm buzzing with that, to be fair. I wasn't looking forward to it at the start of the week, I'm not going to lie. But no, absolutely thrilled with the win, to be fair.
Well, a huge drive from yourself, and you mentioned there you weren't looking forward to it at the start of the week. I presume it's because it's Suzuka and the fault of wet weather conditions and the challenge this circuit brings.
Well, I've not done any practice, to be fair. I've not run any officials at all this week, but I'm normally really quick in the rain, so I like it. But I think I swapped cars in Spa from the Lambo to the Mustang because I was really quick in the Mustang in the rain. But since they've changed the BOP, it's just awful in the rain. Literally, I can't handle the weight transfer because the way I used to drive in the rain, I was very aggressive, so I used to get on the power quite early and just, like, basically turn the front of the car. But since the update, I can't really do that, so I've had to change my driving style in the wet, and it's just a lot slower than I normally am. So I'm still all right, don't get me wrong, but I'm normally really quick in the wet, and it's pulled me back a little bit. So I was worried, and I had my heart in my mouth a lot of times in that race then when the guys were catching me.
Oh, fair play. I mean, the way the race played out, in fact, I would argue that you looked very comfortable. But let's just talk a little bit about qualifying first. Obviously, we had the rain arrive literally at the start of qualifying, but it was a mad dash for everyone to try and get a lap together on the slick tyres whilst they could find some grip. Your teammate, of course, Elliot Court took pole. You took third. You must have been happy to be starting towards the front.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it was just before the race started today, actually, about an hour or two before the session started. I decided to do a bit of a practice. So I set up the qualifying session to the weather, and I noticed that the first, as soon as it came on, it was dry. So I did a few times, literally resetting the server, and literally it was lap 1 and lap 1 only. You get that in and you get a time. So I told my teammates, told Jared, told Elliot that literally put the dryers on. It's going to be dry. Get out, make sure you get your lap in, keep it tight, and that's what we did. And we had a good quality, to be fair. It was just literally not push too hard, just make sure you get that lap in, because as soon as the rain hits, that's it. Your times are done.
Oh, I see. Well, you got it together there. And then take us through the start of the race from your perspective, because your teammate Elliot, he was absolutely being attacked left, right and centre by yourself, and also by none other than the man who started alongside on that front row. And I believe that was none other than Brandon Dyer. And in the end, you found your way to sneak through, and yourself and Brandon just went running off into the distance.
Yeah, I mean, to us, Elliot was pretty quick, but we just got a good start, and I went round the outside, and we was on comms, and I just said to Elliot, I'm on the inside. He said, yeah, no issue, and just laid up a little bit because we didn't want to cause an incident. So then I seemed to have the pace on Brandon, but I didn't want to push and make a move because it's, like they said, the conditions were just treacherous, and I didn't want to cause an incident. I was happy just sitting behind, to be honest. And then he was holding up a little bit, and then I don't know what happened with the incident when he went off. I don't know whose fault it was or whatever. It seemed to be side by side, and all of a sudden he span in front of me. I need to look back at it to see what happened, whether it was my fault, his fault, or just a racing incident. I don't know, but it's a shame it ended like that, to be fair.
Well, bit unfortunate there, but at the same time as well, we did get to see you really put that pressure on Brandon, and as time went on, we started to see the circuit dry up a little bit when the rain went away, and the pace started to ebb and flow. I mean, how did you find it adjusting from a circuit that had rain coming down to it was getting quicker and quicker, and at some point you needed to go to the slick tyre?
Yeah, I didn't do much dry practice at all, apart from the qualifying session, the practice session before, just to see what pace I had in the dry, and it weren't too bad. And I was doing now what setup to put on. So I ended up putting a rain setup on, because I thought, obviously, it's so treacherous, you need to keep it stable and not on the track. So I didn't know whether others had put a dry setup on with wet tyres, and it was going to be quick later on. I didn't know. And literally, I was zooming an hour in whether to take wets or dries, and literally had one lap of fuel left, and I was looking at the track, and it was still probably just about wets, and I was thinking I need to just gamble because it's going to go dry soon. I thought if I can just stay out and keep it on track, then the race will come back to me, and I shouldn't lose much two positions. But I was shocked, to be fair, when I went in, and I think it was Milton and Richard was like 10 seconds ahead of me. I thought, oh my God, how have they got so far ahead? They must have had a bad pit stop. And then I realised they actually stayed on wet, so I thought, oh, brilliant. And then the pace just come. Like I said, I think it was just a mistake. That it was definitely the right choice for me to go to dries, that's for sure.
Oh, indeed, it was the right call, though. You had to battle your way past for the lead, but it was a very quick set of passes. But in the late stages, we did see Niels Balkhaget then closing up behind you. Were you worried that he might make a move on you?
Yeah, I thought he was catching quick, me, to be fair. He seems to have the pace on mid, or kind of what set up or whatever he had on, but he was definitely quicker than me in the draw in the end. And I thought if it was one more lap or two more laps, he probably would have done me, to be fair. So I got a bit lucky there, and I did literally. I think the last couple of corners I was coming up to a lap mark, and I was thinking, please, just don't hold me up. But yeah, I said to that in the chat, I think one more lap, and I think he would have done me.
Well, you managed to hold on to the very end, and within those 27 laps, able to bring home your first win. I mean, it must feel very satisfying, given that Jared's had a lot of success in the interclass, but you're the first pro member of the team to take a win.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm delighted. Like I said, it's been up and down so far this year for me. I've had a couple of mistakes, a couple of chances for top three, not taking it. Had some bad qualifying and stuff, so it's good that it's come back to me now. Like I said, Jared's been giving it the big one and winning the Inter, so I can give it him back so now a little bit. So yeah, it's good.
Well, first one on the board today. Next time up, we're in France for the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. Can you make it two in a row?
I've no idea. I've never driven it, so that's going to be fun. I'm going to have to get some practice in this week. I need to buy the track as well, because I haven't got it. So I won't have a clue till it comes up. So I've not got a clue. Hopefully I'll be up there, but like I said, I'll be starting from scratch, to be fair.
Well, you might be starting from zero, but we look forward to seeing whether you can become a hero in a week's time in France. But just before we do let you go, Raz, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yeah, thanks to teammates, Davey, the DDK team, Gerard Elliott, my wife, my kids, Ray Stanley. They let me do this and let me stay up and give me times on my rig in the front room, which is a bit of an eyesore having triples in there, but they let me do it, so thank you.
Oh, Raz, a huge thank you to you for joining me in the interview room this evening. Well done on taking your maiden win in a very tricky race. We look forward to seeing whether you can make the magic happen for the second time in France in a week's time. But until then, savour the moment, enjoy it, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
No worries. Cheers. Thanks for the top quality broadcast as well. Much appreciated.
So hearing that, ladies and gentlemen, from Raz Harper, and well, a really happy DDK with RaceStatBot.com driver today, no doubt about it. And for Raz delivering a very solid race. And mentioning the fact that in qualifying and after being able to get a little bit of practice in the build-up to today, realising that he would be able to essentially get that one lap in at the start of qualifying, but you had to get it done, and you had to get it done straight away. And in doing so, it put him third on the grid. He was happy with that. But at the start of the race, mentioned the fact he did control himself a little bit to make sure he didn't end up in an incident with his teammate Elliot Court. Elliot slips back a little bit, but meanwhile, he was able to chase after Brandon Dyer and put the pressure on. Also mentioned there the fact the continued evolution of the circuit and the drying of the circuit was something he really had to take a gamble, and he wasn't sure whether go to the wets or the slicks in his pit stop, but in the end took the gamble, went to slicks, and it paid off. But also stating that if it were not for the fact that there was going to be no more laps, he was worried that NJP Performance's Niels Balkarge would have been able to take that win away from him, but it wasn't quite so. Well, for Raz Harper, he's definitely finding the right balance today, and if he can do so again at the Circuit Zolder Magny Core, it could be a late springboard in the championship for him, but we'll have to wait and see. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some more interviews to come. We'll be right back. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we continue the theme of DDK racing drivers in the interview room, but we've spoken to a pro. Now we come to an interclass driver, and joining me now in the interview room is none other than Jared Love. Jared, good evening to you. It's great to have you back on the grid once again after missing Circuit Zolder. But today, I can imagine a bit of a frustrating one because a great result in perspective, but in the heat of the moment, I think you really wanted that win.
Yeah, nail on the head. Nail on the head there. Frustrating. Done really well with the qualifying, getting out and getting that one sort of single lap shootout on dries, getting pole in class, and then wet pace was just non-existent. Talking 2 or 3 seconds a lap slower than some of the fastest boys, which I don't ever aim to be as fast as a lot of the pros, but certainly closer than what I was. And Bobby flew past me in the wet, really. I had pace in the dry, but it just wasn't dry for long enough, unfortunately. I kind of hoped and was planning for it to dry maybe 2, 3, 4 laps earlier, but yeah, it wasn't to be.
Well, it wasn't to be in the race, but what was to be was a brilliant pole lap from yourself. And we just spoke to Raz, and I suspect you'll probably say the same. It was a bit of a sprint right at the start of qualifying. Get that lap in before the circuit got wet.
Yeah, absolutely. It was on Raz as well. Raz went and done today, I think, 4 or 5 somewhat realistic, weather simulation of what was forecast and to practice what would be for qualifying, and he was adamant that you're going to get a lap and a half on dries, and it's going to start raining the second half of that your flying lap, which he was bang on. That's exactly what happened, and fortunately the first sort of 3/4 of the lap you were quick enough that you weren't losing any or much time anyway, once the track got that little bit greasy.
Well, then a great simulation from it enabled you guys to really be able to put it together. And then going into the race itself, it looked a good start for yourself, although straight away from the open lap, 2 wide fighting for practically the entirety of the first lap. And Bobby was never too far away.
Yeah, I was kind of always looking at the sort of relative to see where Bobby and Van Gortel were. I think there was 2 other runners behind me as well. Names escaped me that I've not really been up there with at all this season or had any battles with, so I wasn't sure how they were going to be on an opening lap, whether they were going to be quite aggressive or quite passive. So the first lap or so I was just trying to survive, feel how the car was and the grip, and then hopefully settle into some kind of decent pace, which never happened if you look at my lap time compared to what I'd been hitting in practice, as well as what should have been hitting there.
And off the back of that, of course, when you say about what is the lap times in practice, I mean, you've taken a week out, and I hope you've had a great time off as a result, but coming back to the race, I mean, you've jumped right into the deep end. Some would say that you've come back to Suzuka to be a tricky circuit, but it's Suzuka in the soaking wet. What was your focus in terms of your practice?
Yeah, sort of for a wet race, or sort of forecasted wet race, I always like to go out and get a good dry time, figure out where I should be braking in the dry, and then I know in the wet that this is the best racing line, and this is where I maybe shouldn't be braking, and then we just test the waters, what corners you can take closer to the racing line, what you're going more offline for. So yeah, dry lap first, and then we do a bit of wet practice various stages of wet. So track with puddles, just getting wet, drying track. That's something I aim for, and my times for what the conditions were in practice were probably about a second and a half a lap quicker. So who knows what the issue tonight was, whether the track was just that little bit wetter, or there was some kind of, I don't know, something wasn't clicking for me in the wet tonight anyway.
Now, to be fair, you may say that, but one thing that definitely clicked, and I think is definitely going to be a highlight for seasons to come, is you didn't just do it once, you did it twice, going 3 wide with pros around this circuit on a trying circuit with slick tyres. I mean, you weren't holding back in the last couple laps chasing after Bobby. I think every time you made a step forward, a pro got in the way, and you seem to have that mentality of, I'll find a way past, even if it's going to cost me the race.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how big the gap to P3 in it was, but I think it was quite a big gap, enough that I knew that if I had a little crash, I'd hopefully get back going again. It wouldn't end the race. It was maybe quite risky, given that, I think it's only 10 points the difference between P1 and P2, but that would be a 20-point swing if it was going to be Bobby and I were reversed. And I'd like to think in the dry I was really fast at the end of the race there. I would have had him, should it, if there not been for traffic, and he'd done really well at just getting a car in between us at the right time. And that's what happens in racing. Sometimes you're lucky with traffic, sometimes you're not. I'm sure if we were to do that race again, the roles would be reversed again, and I would be better in traffic and Bobby would get held up. So that happens, and across the season it balances itself out, doesn't it? So.
Oh, very true. Like you say, it's all based on the season as a whole rather than just individual results. And of course, a great second place for yourself today. Next up, the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours in France. What's the plan there?
I just bought it, in terms of I've never driven it before. Don't even know the layout of the track. I don't think I've ever seen it get raced. So learn it from scratch effectively, and hopefully be back up there again, whether at podium or potentially winning the race, P2, P3, but hopefully finishing above Bobby and getting a bit more of a gap in terms of the championship. It's came down a little bit in the last few weeks, whereas it's back-to-back wins. So I would like to get that increased a little bit again.
All fair play. We look forward to seeing whether you can reopen the gap a little bit and give yourself the comfort barrier, but we'll find out whether we can do that in France in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Jared, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Yeah, thank you, and a shout out to the teammates, TDK, Raz and Elliot. Whether it be just little questions about how you take in this corner, how you find this conditions, sharing advice and tips about the track. And a shout out to the missus as well, who gives me this time to go and pretend to race cars every Thursday night as well as through the week to get the practicing.
Oh, fair play, Jared. Well, it's been absolutely brilliant racing for yourself today, no doubt about it. You may have finished second, but you definitely were first and foremost in plenty of the exciting moments today. We look forward to plenty more in France in a week's time and whether you can get one back on Bobby. But until then, have a lovely rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. See you later.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Jared Love, our Inter run-up today for DDK with RaceStatBot.com, and a day today where he's able to put it on pole, and all the simulations from his teammate of Raz Harper really coming in valuable with regards to knowing exactly what they'd be able to do in qualifying and how quickly they'd need to get a lap together. In the race, really trying to manage the gap as much as possible. We're talking about the fact he was never truly able to drop several of the interdrives, and particularly those opening couple laps. We're a bit nervous given the fact there were a lot of interdrives around him he had not raced with previously, but these changeable conditions can change up the order and who exactly you fight with. Lost out as the race went on versus Bobby Moss, but then tried to come back at him late on, but mentioned there the fact the balance of frustration, but also in the wider perspective, still a good result, but he wanted that when he had the pace in the dry, but every time he tried to go forward, a pro driver would get in the way, and he had to make some daring moves. But mentioned there, knowing he had plenty of space between himself and third place finisher, what was it, Ross Young in the Interclass. He was willing to risk it if needed, because at the end of the day, he wants to try and get those results in the bag as soon as possible. But we'll have to wait and see how the practice goes for the Magny-Cours circuit, and where Jared Love can prevent Bobby Moss from making a hat-trick of wins. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stay in the Interclass. We'll be right back very shortly for another interview. And well, of course, if we're going to hear from our runner-up in the Interclass, we're definitely going to hear from our winner today in the Interclass. And joining me now in the interview room is Bobby Moss. Bobby, good evening to you, and well, we just caught up with Jared. Whilst his day was one of successful frustration, I get the feeling that today for yourself, this has been one of a very great elation, back-to-back wins.
Let's go, Paul. Yes, mate. Yeah, I can't believe it. Buzzing. Absolutely buzzing, mate. I'm 40 tomorrow, so what a present.
Oh, goodness
Wish me
me.
happy birthday if you want.
Well, happy birthday to you for tomorrow. And I'm sure many in the YouTube chat may also say happy birthday. I'll wait and see if any of those messages do come in. But a perfect run into your birthday. But qualifying-wise, 11th overall, 4th in class. Did you find yourself right on the sort of balancing point between getting a lap in on the slicks versus almost not getting one in?
Yeah, I looked at the weather radar. I was like, I need to go out straight away. And then I was just messing about, staying behind a couple of the pros, warming the tyres up. And I should have just gone because it started raining halfway around the lap. And that was it. Whoever was on track on dries at that point got their lap in, and everyone else is screwed really. So it's a really mixed up grid. So I think I was like 4th or 5th in the inters, and I was already like really high up the grid, like P11. So it must have been, yeah, really mixed up at the back.
Well, quite the mix-up with regards to the grid, but when we did go racing, I mean, your opening couple of laps were nothing short of you going full attack and trying to make progress. I have to ask, had you set the car up for the wet, or had you gone for a bit of a hybrid approach? You just looked so comfortable regardless of the state of the circuit.
Yeah, I went for the wet setup, mate. I looked at the weather, and it's going to be half the race raining, and then obviously it's not going to dry up instantly, so you know it's going to be more than 50% wet. So I went for the wet setup, and yeah, I felt really good. So especially those first couple of laps, obviously it's really tight because there's other cars around, but I felt so fast. Just yeah, couldn't quite get past a couple of people. Won the first couple of laps. And then once it cleared out a bit, everyone starts getting a few gaps. Much like Fuji, start putting my foot down a bit even more, and was making good progress through the field. Yeah, I think I got to 6th or 7th. I was just behind Jared, and then I managed to turn it around and put it in the wall, which yeah, I wasn't best pleased about. But yeah, the start other than that was really good.
Or indeed, there's a bit of a crunch moment, like you say, but after that, you're able to get things back together. And, well, towards the end of the first stint of the race, we saw you take the lead off of Jared Love, albeit aided a little bit perhaps by the pros getting involved. And that seemed to be the theme when you went to the dry tyre. Get ahead of the pros and let them cause as much problem as possible for Jared.
Yeah, mate, that was my strategy. Yeah, so after I picked up the damage there, it said I got damage, but I had no idea. It wasn't too hard a hit. But see, I can't pick because it's wet and I know it's going to go to dry. So yeah, I had to keep pushing, and yeah, I got past a few pros, managed to catch up Jared again, which I was surprised, to be honest. And then yeah, like you say, from that point, pros battling, I had to try and just sneak through when they were battling. And yeah, even more so after we pitted for dries, I think I had 2 seconds on him, and I had no pace in the dry. I was just so lucky. I remember, I think the penultimate lap, there was Richard Simnor and a couple of other pros that had stayed out on wets. Man, when I got past them before turn 1 and I seen Jared behind him, I was buzzing. Buzzing, for want of a PC word, mate. I was very, very pleased. And then, yeah, same again on the last lap. I'd managed to get past 2 of the back markers. I forget the names. And yeah, I seen Jared get stuck behind me. I was like, oh, come on, let's go. Buzzing. Oh, it's so tough out there, Paul. Flipping it. You can't imagine.
Oh, indeed. I mean, the elation says it all, to be fair. And with now 2 wins back-to-back and your 4th podium of the season, surely this has got to be giving you this growing confidence that with only 3 rounds to go, you can definitely level the playing field versus Jared in what is 2 or 3 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, it has, but like, he's always there, man. He's so fast. So like, if I win, I know he's going to be P2, P3. So closing this gap's going to be so hard. I'm just hoping it doesn't come down to like 2 or 3 points, and then I'll know that my missing the start at Brands Hatch cost me. That's what I'm hoping for. Either he batters me the next 3 races, or I'll win it. Well, ideally win it, obviously, but if not, he batters me.
Oh, fair play. Well, we'll have to wait and see if that's the way it plays out. But next up is the Magny-Cours circuit in France. How experienced are you with the circuit?
Yeah, okay. I've not raced it for about a year or so. I was doing a few GT4 races there. I like driving around there, but there's for overtaking, you've only really got that the hairpin. What did it turn 3? Other than that, you kind of just in a train the whole time. So everyone's going to be absolutely sending it there the first couple of laps. So try and avoid the carnage there. It's inevitably going to happen, and see what we can do from there. But I do like that track, yeah.
Well, we'll have to wait and see whether you can send yourself to the top once again and make it 3 in a row at the Magny-Cours circuit. But just before we do let you go, Bobby, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
Yeah, as always, mate. The TSRC boys, thanks for having me. My beautiful wife and son. Love you. Sorry, I love them, not you, Paul.
It's okay. You can love me as well.
I love you, Paul. I do love you. Sorry, that was harsh. I do love you, Paul.
Well, Bobby, we'll leave it there. But congratulations on your second win and a brilliant way of setting yourself up for your 40th birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday from myself and everyone at SimRacing International. We hope you have a great one, as great as the win's been today. And we will see you at Magny-Cours in a week's time.
Cool. God bless, mate. I'll catch you next week.
Take
Cheers, mate.
care. So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for the ever wonderful character of Bobby Moss of the SimRacing Collective Esports. And well, I'm a little bit hurt that he doesn't love me, ladies and gentlemen. Joking aside, I mean, he's absolutely fantastic. And he's had a brilliant round of racing today. So much so that, of course, it does now equate into what will be for him his second win, and a little bit of belief coming along that he could potentially challenge Jared Love for the crown. But interesting there, he mentions he either wants to be completely beaten by Love over the next couple of rounds, or he wants to really get the upper hand. He doesn't want it to be close, because otherwise the spectre of the pit lane start from Brands Hatch will be hanging over him. And of course, that's the problem when you get into the top end of the championship. The little things, or sometimes the big things, start to make you think, did we throw it all away over something so simple? Well, Bobby Moss can't think that way. He's got to celebrate this second win, enjoy that 40th birthday, and move on to Magny-Cours and see whether he can make it 3 in a row and get even closer to Jared Love. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our final interview. We'll be back very shortly as we head to the club class. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we couldn't quite complete our interviews without interviewing our third winner of today. And of course, that is none other than Adam Lynch, who now joins me in the interview room. Adam, good evening to you, and thank you for waiting. What a changing day it's been for yourself, but what a positive day for yourself as well. Started second, took the win, and in the end had to hold off both Rob Gregg and Steve Hughes to the finish line. I mean, you must be very proud of this one.
Yeah, great race from me. I think I got past Jack first lap, which gave me the confidence to go and push on, even if I did get overtaken by 7 or 8 cars going into Spoon, who were faster than me, which put me back on his bumper again. But from there, it was all just calm, controlled, knowing when to pit and keeping the pace.
Now, an incredibly well-managed race from yourself. Of course, we've asked the question to our other interviews with regards to qualifying. It looks like you got it right in qualifying in terms of being able to set 18th on the overall grid, second in class, despite the fact, of course, it was the mad scramble to get a lap together within the first 3 to 4 minutes of the session. How was that from your perspective?
I kind of realised as soon as the session started, I was like, oh, it's dry. And then I set my car up for wet, because I thought it'd be wet straight away. I put wet tyres on, and then I went back into the setup, and it took like 10 seconds, 15 seconds to load. And then when it loaded, I managed to get it, into dries and get out. And I think it started raining just before I went into Spoon. Still managed to keep enough pace up to stay somewhat with Jack, who I think finished the lap about 10 seconds before I did. But yeah, kept it well controlled through the end of the lap. I'm happy with the qualifying.
Well, a happy qualifier session, and in the race, as you mentioned only moments ago, able to take the lead off of Jack Giles early on, but then being relegated back to him. But it seems though he had a bit of an error a couple of laps into the race, whereas you did not, and you were able to gradually create a gap. So you must have thought at that point everything's looking really sunny.
It did, and I had Phil Harris creeping up to me, and he was really fast. And I was thinking, oh, this is gonna be my lead gone here. And I think he tapped my rear end once, giving me a bit of damage. And I was losing a lot through the mid-speed corners, which is more than half the lap really, especially through 130R, and then got rear-ended again by another car because obviously I had to take it a lot slower. And at that point, I was just thinking, just try and keep it clean, try and keep as much pace as I possibly could, whilst being chased down by Rob, who had good pace throughout the full race. So yeah, that first stint was just all really about management until I came into the pits and could use the faster path.
Now, with respect to the first stint, like you say, all management there. So going into the second stint, slick tyres go on the cars. You're back out in the lead. Rob Gregg is stuck behind you. Steve Hughes, who gambled on pitting several laps earlier than yourselves, he's on slicks but catches up. But at that point, you must have thought to yourself, hold on a second, if I just stay on the dry line, they can't pass me.
Yeah, I knew that they couldn't get past, and I obviously knew that Rob was on slicks behind, because I saw Steve popping a lap. I think it was 2:14.1 at the time, and as soon as he put that lap up, I was like, right, I'm pitting this lap for slicks. And as soon as I pitted then and came up, I think it was 5 seconds ahead, I was like, right, well, I'm going to drop the time, but I've got Rob behind me, so hopefully he just defends and Steve can't get past, obviously, because the dry line's really the only line that can be used. And yeah, just managed to keep them behind. And I think going into the last 2 laps, I realised, oh, I'll have like no fuel going over the line, so I had to fuel save into turn 1, into the hairpin, and then into the chicane at the back end of the lap. And that just gave them, like, put them right up close to me. And I think obviously because there was no other line that could really be taken, I think I finished with around 0.3 litres of fuel, which, yeah, it was a close one. Just fuel saved enough though to keep it rolling.
Oh, goodness me, a whole race of management for yourself, even when you managed to keep everyone else behind you and to manage the fuel to the end. I don't know how you do it, Adam, but I can tell you one thing. It's now back-to-back wins. It's a 3rd win of the season. That Championship League grows just that little bit bigger. And next up, Magny-Cours. Is the belief you can make it a 4th win there?
I hope so. It's a track I have driven before, about a year ago, when I last drove it. I drove it in the Mercedes, so very different, obviously, in the Porsche. And I think I can get pace out of it. It's a track that I like. Not very many overtaking spots, which is usually the tracks I seem to do well at. So I'm hoping I can keep the form going and go back to back.
Well, we definitely look forward to seeing whether you can maintain your form and your rhythm with it as you try to chase down that club championship crown. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
Yeah, the Euro Titans Endurance boys keep me company throughout the race, give me tips on, what, especially during the qualifying, and just everyone, really, really clean, especially lap 1. All the drivers, I don't think really there was a single contact ahead of me on lap 1, and that's quite rare to see, especially in a wet race. So yeah, really, really good driving for everyone today.
Well, Adam, it's been an absolute blast to have an opportunity to catch up yourself in the interview room. Congratulations today on bringing home your 3rd win and building such a run of momentum. We look forward to seeing you take on Magny-Cours in a week's time, whether you can make it a 4th win. But until then, savour that great result and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thanks very much, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Adam Lynch, our final interviewee and the privateer. We'll definitely have to work hard for it today. Very happy with the qualifying performance, although he did go out on wets and then had to very quickly get back into the pits and put dries on, so he just managed to get that lap in when the rain was falling. But in the race, made some early progress, and with Jack Giles having that instant early on, was not under pressure initially, until he was, because suddenly he did have James Fraser and Rob Gregg catch up. Of course, for Rob Gregg, He maintained the pressure for James Fraser, went around at the Degners, and that was the theme really all the way to the very end. Adam Lynch would lead, but he would have a queue of club drivers behind him, and that was articulated by Rob Gregg and Steve Hughes being hot at his heels all the way to the very end, but knowing that on a slick tyre, all we need to do is be on the dry line on a drying circuit, and nobody can pass you, and that's exactly what he did all the way to the very end. So Adam Lynch today, battling with the fuel of his car, battling with the tyre choices, and battling with those around. He's made it a third win. He seems to be overcoming every change that's thrown him right now, so surely at Magny-Cours it's going to be 4, right? We'll have to wait and see whether he does that on the next racing night. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to a close of our interviews here today at the Suzuka International Racing Course. But who exactly did we speak to? Well, let's give you a quick recap. So we've had 4 interviews this evening, and we started off by speaking to our Pro Class winner today, a one-time winner for this season, Raz Harper for DDK with RaceStatBot.com. Then we came to Jared Love, his teammate, who in the end brought home second place, chasing after Bobby Moss as much as possible. But for Jared Love, it wasn't an in-to-win to be, with a great return to the race, no doubt about it, after missing Zolder. Then we came to his rival who did take the Interclass win, Bobby Moss, and what a way to go into celebrating his 40th birthday with an absolutely brilliant drive, and with it back-to-back wins, and the belief is growing for the SimRacing Collective Esports driver. And then we did come to your club class winner of Adam Lynch, the privateer. Very grateful to working with his rival team out there, the Enduro Titans Endurance team, but in the end was able to get it all together for a win that definitely takes him one step further to putting a hand on the crown, potentially when he leaves Magny-Cours if he gets the result there. But well done to all 4 drivers for their brilliant performances today, and a huge thank you to them for joining me in the interview room. And also, I'd just like to reiterate what Adam was saying there, a huge well done to all of our drivers. Whilst it didn't quite work out for several of them as the race went on, well done to them all for taking on some very tricky conditions today, and for what was an absolutely epic opening lap in the fact that we did see the whole field make it through the first half a lap with no scraps at all. It did go a little bit wrong for a couple of drives towards the end, as you would expect in the rain, but to be fair, the respect was given and it was taken absolutely fairly, and that's what we love to see here at SimRacing International. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is of course now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and we do apologise for slight technical hitches throughout today's broadcast, it doesn't normally happen, but it does seem as though when lightning struck once today, it struck 3 times in the commentary booth and with the broadcast, and we will look into it for the next round. Well, if you have enjoyed the show either way, indeed, you may be thinking right now, how do I get on the grid and join SimRacing International? Well, the good thing is, this screen shows you everything you need to know. Just simply use the Discord link at the bottom of your screen, and you can join the beating hearts of the community and get yourself on board today. And when you're an esports professional all the way through to a rookie racer, we'd definitely love to have you join us. Now, speaking of what you can join, well, you've been tuning in today to the Thursday evening GT3 Championship, currently in its 12th season, and we do have our Masters and Superstar splits. But if you're a big GT fan, but perhaps you prefer something a little bit more danger when it comes to locking up the brakes, well, of course, we do have on Friday evenings our Grand Touring Endurance, or our GTE class championship, and that's currently in its 2nd rendition. Or if you're a GT3 fan, but you can only race on weekends, perhaps you've got a busy week in the midst of the week. Well, of course, on the weekends, we do have our Sunday evening UK SimRacing Sunday Showdown, currently in its 18th instalment, and it's got a bit of a different format for this season where it does have bonus points for the last 3 rounds, and we're very, very shortly making our way into those rounds, and we'll see how it changes the curvature of the championship. So we have 3 brilliant championships all lined up and all awaiting your presence. But if you want something a lot more casual, perhaps you're looking to dip your toes into racing as part of a league format, we do have 3 free races per week, all part of our practice league, and those run on Tuesday evenings, Wednesday evenings, and Saturday evenings. So there's never been a better time to get on the grid at SimRacing International, and whether you are a rookie all the way through to a professional, you're definitely going to find plenty of competition at your level. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'd also like to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include, of course, Carme, Mon Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, we'd like to give a big shout out to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and beyond. But with that, we now look ahead to round number 8, and in a week's time, on Thursday the 21st of May, we make our way back to the European continent and we head to France for the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours, the circuit that was once home to GT World Challenge Europe and once home to the French Grand Prix until it was moved to Circuit Paul Ricard, where it's a circuit that may be considered somewhat remote compared to many of its peers, but it's a circuit not to be forgotten about. With its mixture of bends which are inspired by circuits around the world and limited overtaking opportunities, will it be a game of follow the leader, or can someone try and show that you can be bold and brash at Magny-Cours and bring home a big result? Now in the pro class, of course, coming out to today, a gamble to stay on the wet tyres of both Richard Simnor and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, as has seen both of them lose critical points, but a loss of fuel right towards the very end of the race saw Tomlinson-Dennis able to squeeze ahead of Richard Simnor, who spluttered across the line, but both will have lost progress. And they'll know now their advantage to the rest of the pro field has been slightly cut. Meanwhile, in the interclass, Jared Love's lead has been slightly reduced, with Bobby Moss picking the win on him today. But understandably, Love is still in control, but the gap is tightening. And meanwhile, in the club class, nobody seems to be able to stop Adam Lynch from making wins and podiums happen. And will he be able to make another one happen, so that way he could potentially start to look at taking the crown in round number 9 in 2 weeks' time? Well, with all that and more, and all the stories in terms of how they continue, we definitely recommend you tune in next time on Thursday the 21st of May to see how it all goes down in France. But until then, from here in our Superstar split of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12, that's all we've got time for. We've been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.